promoting the application of theory, methodology, and scientific techniques to the conservation of architectural and archaeological heritage. ICOMOS is a network of wide spectrum of experts that benefits from the interdisciplinary exchange of its members, ranging from architects, historians, archaeologists, art historians, geographers, anthropologists, engineers, and town planners. About RVCA. RV College of Architecture was established in 1992. Initially, it started as a Department of Architecture in RV College of Engineering, Bengaluru. The institute has grown to be an independent campus under the RV umbrella. Over the course of 2.5 decades, RVCA has earned its reputation as an institution firmly ingrained in pedagogy revolving around academics, research, and consultancy. At present, it is globally recognized as a center of excellence and quality education in the field of architecture and urban design. RVCA has been the institutional member of ICOMOS since 2021. In the past 2 years, this association has seen initiation of various concerted activities to foster the essence of conservation and heritage documentation. Some of them being conducting heritage documentation of lesser known monuments in the region using LIDAR, drone, and 3D laser scanning. Further interpreting the data with appropriate processing software as part of spatial lab. Sensitizing future architects regarding the ideology of conservation by aligning the higher studio design briefs with concepts and intent of conservation. RVCA has regularly submitted research proposals with ICOMOS India towards obtaining seed grant as PI and co-PI and jointly with NSE HD. RVCA is honored to co-host this symposium jointly with ICOMOS and looking forward to an engaging and inspiring event ahead. Let us now begin with the inauguration of the symposium by lighting the lamp. I request Professor Jaisim Krishnarao, Professor Nalini Thakur, Architect Shalini Dasgupta, and Dr. O.P. Bawane to kindly grace the stage and light the lamp. Thank you. Now I call upon Ms. Ananya, third semester student from RVCA, to present the invocation song.
ಗಜವದನ ಬೇಡುವೆ ಗಜವದನ ಬೇಡುವೆ ಗೌರಿ ತನಯ ಗಜವದನ ಬೇಡುವೆ ಗೌರಿ ತನಯ ತ್ರಿಜಗವಂದಿತನೇ ಸೃಜನರ ಪೊರೆವನೆ ಗಜವದನ ಬೇಡುವೆ ಪಾಶಾಂಕುಶಧರ ಪರಮ ಪವಿತ್ರ मूषिका वाहन मुनिजन प्रेमा पाशांकुशधरा परम पवित्रा मूषिका वाहन मुनिजन प्रेमा गजवदना बेडुवे गौरी तनया त्रिजगवंदितने सृजनर पोरेवणे गजवदना बेडुवे मोददि निन्नया पादवतोरो साधुवंदितने आदरदिंदली मोददि निन्नया पादवतोरो साधुवंदितने आदरदिंदली सरसि जनाभश्री पुरंदर विठलना निरतने नेयुवंते वरदय माडो सरसि जनाभश्री पुरंदर विठलना निरतने नेयुवंते वरदय माडो गजवदना बेडुवे गौरी तनया त्रिजगवंदितने सृजनर पोरेवणे गजवदना बेडुवे गजवदना बेडुवे
Thank you, Ananya. I now invite our principal, Dr. Om Prakash Bawane, to welcome and address the gathering. Dr. Bawane, with the eagerness of aligning the Institute's pedagogy to include conservation and heritage studies, has spearheaded various programs within the Institute and in collaboration with various other organizations. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, one and all. There are two reasons for me to be short. One is that we are running behind the schedule. And another thing is that I'm not an expert on the subject of the Congress. So better I don't talk much about the subject. This date, that is 24th February 23, will actually go in records of our institution history, that this is for the first time. We have been honored to be the host for the Scientific Congress of ICOMOS. And I'm thankful to ICOMOS for giving us this opportunity. Being the principal, on behalf of my management, that is Rashtriya Shikshan Samiti Trust, my faculty, myself, and everyone from the family of RV, I extend very warm welcome to one and all, in particular to Professor Jaisim, the keynote speaker for today's Congress, Professor Nalini Thakur, Ms. Shalini Dasgupta, Secretary ICOMOS India, Shri Sangamitra Basu, Advisor, National Scientific Council, the zonal representatives of ICOMOS, Ms. Smita Makhija, Ms. Poonam Tramadia, Mr. Dilip, Mr. Suryanarayana Murthy, and Dr. Arun Menon, the NSC counselor. So I extend very warm welcome to all of you to RV institutions. I'm sure that this 3 days Congress going to be a very fruitful and very learning experience for all of us who will be the part of this Congress for next 3 days. Our association with ICOMOS is now almost, you can say, three years old. The credit for starting this relationship with ICOMOS, I would say that initiative credit goes to my colleague, Professor Bikramjit, whom we had this discussion. He said, sir, we should start some kind of a collaborative association with ICOMOS. I asked him that how it is going to benefit us. We had a long discussion and I was convinced that ICOMOS will provide us the extended platform for learning and research, not only for my colleagues, my faculty, but for the students also. There are a lot of resources, academic resources, research resources that are available on the platform of ICOMOS, which we as institutional member are privileged to access. There are certain themes. If you look at the various themes on which the ICOMOS is working during almost, I can say now, 6 decades of its existence, they align with our mission, our thoughts, the sustainable development, the right-based approach, and the climate change. Okay. So these are the themes on which the ICOMOS is working, the new themes. And we as an institution, academic institution, we align ourselves to these themes also. So last 3 years of association has been fruitful. We have collaborated with ICOMOS on number of areas, including the documentation, our faculty working as principal investigators, co-principal investigators, and submitting the research proposals, etc. And now this is another event which demonstrates that yes, we are working very closely with ICOMOS. I said that I would not be talking much about the topic because I am not an expert, but say in the past couple of decades, there is an increased awareness among the people, among the society, about conserving and protecting the cultural heritage which exists around us. And the government has also been on the forefront to support such movements. A lot of supports are extended by the government agencies also. And yes, ICOMOS, but another important organization in our country, like that is National Trust for Culture and Heritage, they are working closely on that. Yes. On academic front, I would say that a lot of things are being done in academic campuses also to bring about the awareness on this topic. I can quote the example of my own university and my own institution, that during my chairmanship as the chairman of the board of studies of VTU, we brought in certain subjects, like if you like, we have a subject called the heritage conservation, heritage documentation. A lot of our thesis topics at the final year, the topics are based around the historical sites. So a lot of things are being done at the institution level also. And I think I would say that the forefront, we are at the forefront, because we also have a small elective subject that is called the culture and the built environment, built heritage. So a lot of things are being done at the institution level also. Yes, but when we talk about the heritage, people say that you have the tangible and intangible. I think for tangible heritage, a lot of things are being done. We have a lot of experts are there. Say we have the conservation architects, we have the archaeologists, historians, structural engineers, earthquake experts, etc. But another important aspect of this one heritage is the what we call intangible. So that is another thing. Of course, it may not be in the scope of ICOMOS to work on that, but I think that is another area where a lot of work has to be done, because we know that a lot of languages, local languages are now vanishing actually. Okay, the local languages are vanishing. The indigenous knowledge is now vanishing. So there are a lot of things on that front is also required to be done. I'm sure that when I just visited I was just going through what are the other areas on which ICOMOS is working now. They have come up with a new area for this one. They are talking about aerospace heritage. So that is wonderful, and that is, I think, a new initiative. So I think that maybe that over a period of time, the ICOMOS also extends to the protection and the conservation and promotion of the what you call intangible heritage also in the country and globe across. So now, of course, without taking much time, I should say that I should stop here. And I think if I look at the kind of response that we got this time, I think that is commendable. We had received around 75 plus scientific papers for the presentation in this particular Congress, out of which 49 papers have been shortlisted by the screening committee, and those presentation will be made. I'm sure that each session will bring a lot of learning with it, and I'm sure that you all will enjoy being part of this Congress. Thank you once again, and welcome to RV once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of RVCA, I would now like to invite Architect GSV Suryanarayana Murthy, Vice President and South Zone Representative, ICOMOS India, to initiate Parapara 75.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome everyone once again. So I would like to thank RVCA and congratulate RVCA on this day for facilitating this important event for ICOMOS India. And I will be presenting the basic points of today's program in the next 2 days to come. And I will start with a brief introduction of ICOMOS India, which has already been mentioned in the inaugural address, in the introductory address. ICOMOS India is a membership-based organization that provides a forum for individuals and representatives of institutions concerned with the conservation, protection, rehabilitation, and enhancement of cultural heritage sites and places. And it can meet to exchange information and views on principles and practices in this field. And membership is drawn from across the country, divided into 6 zones: North, South, East, West, Central, and Northeast zone. And to ensure adequate regional representations, and regional members are represented by on the executive committee by a regional representative. And also every year on rotation basis, there are currently about 5 institutional members. On rotation basis, they become part of the executive committee. There are 6 zones, as I mentioned, and it functions on national scientific committees. And the current executive committee was elected in the year 2020 and ending in 2023, that is this year. There are about 21 national scientific committees chosen committees. Each year or for every 2 years, they can change their, they can choose to change their association with the scientific councils, scientific committees. And there is an NSC counselor who would guide these national scientific and also coordinate these national scientific councils. Currently, Professor Arun Menon from IIT Madras is the national scientific counselor. And members are governed by which there are guidelines formed under ICOMOS India, which are termed as standard operational procedures and guidelines, termed as SOPG. This guideline document guides all the members for the procedures to be adopted in choosing the scientific committees, in participating and contributing to various activities across the country and across the zones. So with this brief introduction of ICOMOS, I welcome all of you and those who are watching this online. I welcome everyone to this 3-day event, in which first day event is for celebrating 10 years of ICOMOS India formation. Initially, earlier it was being operated on ad hoc basis by archaeology institutions and archaeology directors across the country on random and ad hoc basis. And this was made to a formal organization in 2012. With coming together, we made representations from all the zones. We came together, and 2012 we started this as Council on Monuments and Sites, as is the name of the institution registered. But it is an extended institution of the nation, that is India. And we are also celebrating, coinciding this with 75 years of Indian independence. So that is part of this today's event on the first part of the day. And the second part of the day today is National Scientific Committee conclave is going to happen in the afternoon. And the next 2 days will be the scientific symposium with the papers received, and there are also posters received and which are displayed, which are going to be displayed or which are displayed on the corridors. I welcome all of you once again to this 3-day workshop on Parampara of ICOMOS India in collaboration with RVCA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to add a few lines about Professor GSV Suryanarayan Murthy's contributions. He is a practicing conservation architect and also professor at JBR College of Architecture, Hyderabad. He is an independent consultant in the field of architecture, conservation, planning, and urban design. He advocates reuse, recycle, restore, appropriate use, and maintain as design principle through his practice under his proprietary organizations, Kshetra and IHSRDM. He specializes in documentation of Indian traditional buildings and in historical building knowledge systems. He has worked under Government of Andhra Pradesh as Assistant Professor, HUDCO Chair at the Center of Urban Development Studies, as a trainer and capacity building facilitator. He has worked on heritage, human settlements, infrastructure planning and development projects across India. He is also the coordinator of NSC on cultural landscapes of ICOMOS India. A notable achievement is in July 2021, under his leadership, the Kakatiya Rudreshwara Temple, Telangana, India, got recognized as one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Rohit Jigyasu, founding president, ICOMOS India, to apprise the gathering with COMOS in retrospect. Before that, I'd like to add a few lines. Dr. Rohit Jigyasu is a conservation architect and risk management professional from India, currently working at ICCROM as project manager on urban heritage, climate change, and disaster risk management. He is also at present the Vice President of ICOMOS International Scientific Committee of Risk Preparedness. He has also served as UNESCO Chairholder Professor at the Institute for Disaster Mitigation of Urban Cultural Heritage at Ritsumeikan University, Kyoto, Japan, where he was instrumental in developing and teaching international training course on disaster risk management of cultural heritage. Formally, he has been the elected president of ICOMOS India and president of ICOMOS International Scientific Committee on Risk Preparedness. He has served as the elected member of the Executive Committee of ICOMOS since 2011. Before joining the Conservation Institute and World Bank for consultancy, research, and training on disaster risk management of cultural heritage. He is also the co-author of the revised draft of the UNESCO policy on climate action for World Heritage properties that is currently under discussion by the states parties of the World Heritage Convention. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Executive Committee of ICOMOS India, especially Shalini, for inviting me to speak at this very important occasion. According to me, it's very nostalgic and emotional to be speaking at this 10-year anniversary of COMOS. I also would like to thank the principal of RVCA College and also the organizer for all this preparation that they have done for this event. So I will give you a little story of the birth of ICOMOS India as it has been, and probably some of you will be learning about this story for the first time. It's going to be an interesting story, I suppose, for all of you to see how it all happened. Well, the whole thing started in 2006, as was mentioned by Suryanarayana Murthy, that we were unfortunate to have ICOMOS India existing with very few archaeologists, but without any participation of other heritage professionals. And it was being run in a very ad hoc manner and without any democratic elections. For several years, it continued this way, which was quite a bit of frustration for many, many conservation professionals from India, especially the young ones who were disappointed that they are not able to play a role in the work of ICOMOS, which is for a country like India. And this was not only a disappointment for Indian heritage professionals, for the global community of heritage professionals also, it was really something that they were disappointed about, that Indian heritage professionals are not able to make a mark in the international discussions because of the challenge that ICOMOS India was facing internally. So in 2006, December, there happened to be a decision to organize a ICOMOS scientific meeting on risk management of heritage sites at the Institute of Archaeology in Red Fort in Delhi. The dates that were fixed for this meeting were 20th and to 22nd of May 2007. Now, it so happened that the risk management is an area that I work with, but I was not member of ICOMOS India. So, but the international community wanted to have the agenda where all the professional work which is related to risk management is brought out. And so I was contacted by a very good friend of mine who has also been an executive committee member, Mr. Dinu Bumbaru, and he was one of the ICOT members or International Scientific Committee Risk Preparedness member. And he asked that time the ICOMOS India committee to involve me, but then not being a member of ICOMOS India was quite a problem, right? Because how can I be just joining this scientific committee without being a member of ICOMOS India? So anyways, that started the whole discussion, where I'm now going to recall another very important esteemed member, Dr. R.C. Agarwal, who was also actually executive committee member of the previous ICOMOS India, but was very much upset about the undemocratic way in which it was run. And so RC, as we all call him, really gotten in touch with me, and RC and Dinu and myself somehow decided that we are going to use this opportunity to really try and change ICOMOS India for good. In July 2007, another important member who unfortunately passed away last year, but I would really recall him because his contribution to the rebirth of ICOMOS India cannot be underestimated. And maybe many of you don't know him. He is Mr. John Hurd, who was also in the ICOMOS Advisory Committee, and a very good well-wisher of India. John was very much concerned about the problems with ICOMOS India, and then he actually really wanted to help us to re-establish ICOMOS India, to at least change ICOMOS India in the way it was being run. So there was a meeting set up between the old guard and all of us who were really trying to make the change. And then we got in touch in February 2008. And I would now like to recall some of my good friends, Ratish. In fact, at that time, Janvij was not working with ASI. We also had Tara and Munish. So we all got together and we started to really see what can we do to really get over this situation. Now, one thing that was a big challenge was how to have me as the member of ICOMOS India and also member of ICORP, because without being a member of ICOMOS India, I could not become member of ICORP. And therefore, there was a big struggle in 2010 when the old guard, as we call them, were forced to set up to accept me as a voting member of ICORP. But that was not enough for me, because it was really unfortunate to see such few members from India participating in international discourse. And the problem was that there was no way in which those who were ruling ICOMOS India or running ICOMOS India were changing the way it was being run. So in January 2010, John Hurd and myself met. John had come to India, especially on a mission to really talk to the people who were running ICOMOS that time, to try and sort this out, to really make them open up. But it didn't succeed. In fact, we had a very difficult meeting. While this was going on, unfortunately, elections were announced for the ICOMOS India, again, without following our call for expanding the membership and really following a democratic process of elections. One of the problems was that for the whole of ICOMOS India, there were not more than 25 members at that time. And you can imagine what does it mean? And many of them were only coming from one part of the country. So as things would happen, in August 2010, since I was working at Ritsumeikan University in Japan, I met at that time the president of ICOMOS International, Mr. Gustavo Arroz. And I would like to actually use this opportunity to also really thank him, because he's one of the pioneer persons. Without his support, ICOMOS India would not have been reborn. Gustavo Arroz was also having his childhood spent in India, and having been aware of the rich heritage of India, was very concerned that ICOMOS India is in that kind of situation. So when I met Gustavo in Japan in 2010, we decided to do something to change the situation. Now, how would we change the situation when the old guard is not really opening up? How can we encourage other young members to really join ICOMOS India? So myself and Gustavo made a little strategy of me collecting the names of all the heritage professionals who deserve to be ICOMOS India member and pass the list to him, so that Gustavo on his own letterhead can send invitation letters to all the deserving conservation professionals from India, so that they are encouraged to join. Of course, copying that the president at that time, but definitely the invitation coming from the international ICOMOS president. So coming back to India after the meeting in Japan, we organized a small group of meeting where we got together, and I can tell you those dates are really important. I got together in September a group of heritage professionals in India International Center, IIC, as we know, in Delhi. And we started to draft the list of heritage professionals who can become member of ICOMOS India. We compiled the list, and I would again thank here Tara and Munish, who were really constantly working with me on this mission. Then we compiled the list and sent to Gustavo, and from 30th September 2010 to 2nd October 2010, 2nd October, as you know, is Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, Gustavo Arroz sent letters to each and every member who was deserving to be a member, I mean, a heritage professional. He sent an invitation letter one by one, personally addressed to each of those heritage professionals to become member of ICOMOS India. So this became a big, this came out as a huge encouragement for many heritage professionals who were so disappointed with the way ICOMOS India was working, who never saw any hope that they can ever be invited to be a member of ICOMOS, ICOMOS India. But of course, the old membership guard, the old executive committee, was still not really making it easy for them to become members because they just were controlling the whole membership recruitment process. And so it was becoming very frustrating to really to have these members become the real members. The unfortunate problem that happened was that during this period, again, a new election process was announced by the old guard, again, not following the democratic process. And that became a real kind of a challenge for us. We didn't see any hope that in spite of all this invitation being sent by Gustavo Arroz to all these members, we are going to make a fundamental change. Because it was not becoming easy for them to really get into the membership list, and because of all the challenges that were being faced. The other issue that came in was that we were still following a very old process where you had to write the membership application form and send it by post to Delhi to receive, and these people were not at all conversant with emails or working with electronic medium, and so it would become very difficult for a large country like India to have these kind of a membership process being processed very quickly. So this whole challenge kind of continued from 2010 to 2011, when I again recall Gustavo Arroz, who encouraged me that in case now, and we were all getting so frustrated, we were coming to realize that the only way in which we can make a change is by dissolving the old ICOMOS and setting up a new ICOMOS India, which will follow the democratic principles, which will be addressing the new reality of ICOMOS and the new reality of the world, where electronic medium is really, a digital medium is really very much there, and people are using them. How do we do this? How do we dissolve it? Because it was not easy to dissolve a committee which is existing, but we had to collect some evidence to show that the committee is not working in a legal way. And therefore, again, I would here really like to acknowledge Munish Pandit, who really worked on collecting all the evidence, of course, with Tara and myself, and helped, and we took advice of the lawyer to really put together all the evidence to show that the ICOMOS that was existing before was not working in a very legal way. But it was still not easy to dissolve the organization, because it would require the executive committee of ICOMOS International to really take a very strong decision to dissolve it, which is not an easy decision. To dissolve a committee requires a lot more effort. Gustavo at that moment really encouraged me to stand for an election for the executive committee of ICOMOS International. There was no Indian before, and ICOMOS India didn't really have me as a, so ICOMOS India never recommended me as a member to stand for the election. And so I had to run around, and thanks to Gustavo and thanks to my well-wishers like John, I could actually get support from ICOMOS international members who actually endorsed my nomination to stand for election of ICOMOS International in the General Assembly of ICOMOS held in Paris in 2011. And so I was elected, fortunately, with very good votes, and I became member of ICOMOS International Executive Committee. And that for me was just one mission, that I had to use all this evidence to get the new executive committee to decide to dissolve ICOMOS India that was existing and set up a new ICOMOS India. So I could use that position of being a member of the executive committee of ICOMOS International at that time to, and everybody supported the dissolving of ICOMOS India and setting up of new ICOMOS India, which meant that we had to set up an interim executive committee and draft a constitution, draft an agreement, register ICOMOS India in India as a new organization, following all the new laws and legislations for an NGO, and having a collaboration, having a formal recognition as a national committee of ICOMOS International. So all this process happened between 2011 and 2012, when ICOMOS India was re-established. According to Indian rules, we could not have international in the name of ICOMOS as an organization in India. And therefore, we had to register it as Council on Monuments and Sites. And that is why we call it COMOS and not ICOMOS, to follow Indian rules. And so COMOS got registered as an NGO, as an international, as a national committee of ICOMOS International in India. So that was the brief story of how ICOMOS got established, and I really cannot say less than to say that it is thanks to the efforts of so many heritage professionals who were struggling for many, many years, who were trying to have ICOMOS established, but were or trying to have ICOMOS open up to have them members, which could not happen. But it is only thanks to all these people that I named in my little address, who led to this setting up of ICOMOS as it stands today. I would again mention here that our basic principles for re-establishing ICOMOS India at that time were first, that it should not be only for old members. It should have participation of younger, medium, mid-career and old professionals all together, so that we cannot just have only one generation of heritage professionals. The second important thing for us when we set up ICOMOS India, re-established it, was it should have a pan-Indian representation. It cannot be just in one part of the country. We have to make sure that ICOMOS India is equally represented by all parts of India, and that led to our setting up of 6 zones, as was already mentioned by Suryanarayana and Murthy. We wanted ICOMOS India to play a very important role as advisory body, not only to the international world, but to the local Indian institutions, so that we can provide scientific advice in a very professional way. And we can connect India to the international world. Because what was happening because of the problems with ICOMOS India was that Indian heritage professionals were not very well connected to the to the international community of heritage professionals. And we wanted them to be members of all the international scientific committees. There was a point when I think there were only 2 or 3 Indian heritage professionals who were part of these scientific committees. We wanted to open the door to everyone. We also wanted that in India, ICOMOS India is not just limited to individual members. We wanted it to be opened up to institutions. So all kind of institutions, from academic to public institutions, to private institutions, NGOs have the capacity and the possibility to become the institutional member of ICOMOS India, which I'm so happy to see that it has become a big reality. And of course, we wanted that ICOMOS India's main job is to have a scientific discourse, to set up new benchmarks for professionalism in heritage conservation in India according to Indian context, and not determined by Europeans or by those who are in the position of dominance for generations. And so the scientific agenda had to be established by the setting up of the Scientific Council and national scientific committees, which are so well functioning now. And it is absolutely a dream come true to see such an active engagement of all these national scientific committees. And lastly, our dream was to bring India to the international world, to show that ICOMOS India has the capacity, and heritage professionals in India have the capacity to not only do work for India, but to actually give things to the international world. And we wanted, it was our dream to invite all the international heritage professionals to come to India and see what our professionals have to offer to the international world. And that we managed to do through the organization of the 19th ICOMOS General Assembly in 2017, where around 3,000 members could really be part of this huge event that happens after every 3 years. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted you to take you through this trip of memory lane, and I hope you enjoyed my story sharing with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we would have architect Nupur Prothi Khanna, International Board Member ICOMOS, to address the gathering. Before I invite her onto stage, I'd like to add a few lines. Architect Nupur is a planner and landscape architect from SPA Delhi and a conservation graduate from University of York with more than 22 years of experience. She is an EC member of Indian Society and Landscape Architects, expert member of ICOMOS, IFLA, International Scientific Committee on Cultural Landscapes, and was a scientific committee member of International Society of City and Regional Planners. She is the recipient of ISOCARP First Young Planners Award and Research Grant for her paper on Yamuna Riverfront Development, Charles Wallace Intac UK Trust Scholarship, amongst many other scholarships. Architect Nupur has participated as speaker, coordinator, moderator, and trainer for ISOLA, ICOMOS, and ISOCARP, and is involved in desk reviews for World Heritage Center and World Monument Watch. She is the founder and director of the firm Beyond Built Private Limited, Delhi. She has contributed equally to iconic contemporary and historic projects. Notable amongst these are landscape development of DIAL, Terminal 3 project for GMR and ACOM, Elante multi-use development for L&T, and many more. As a historic landscape consultant, she has been associated with Humayun's Tomb Gardens with Shahid Associates, Pinjore Gardens with CRCI, and many other heritage sites. I'd like to invite architect Nupur onto the stage.
Hello, am I loud and clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Is possible, can someone be allowed to share my screen? I'm not being able to share my presentation. If not, then you can stream it as well. Shalini has a copy. So good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here amongst such a esteemed audience after Rohit's wonderful journey of COMOS India. But thank you very much, RVCE, for hosting this event. RVCE is a very important part of my life. When I moved back from England, I moved straight to Bangalore, and I was teaching at RVCE, where I found some of my best colleagues and students. So thank you, and it's wonderful to see Professor Nalini Thakur here, who is an institution in herself from my life and my journey in the School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi. And then Professor Jaisim, you may not know it, but I had the pleasure of enjoying a large part of my Bangalore time in one of the houses designed by you for the Subramaniams on Cambridge layout. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rima, Arun, Surya, Shalini, Naveen, Priyanka, and so many other colleagues who've made this happen. I will quickly get on to my reflections. I got onto the board of ICOMOS International in 2020, and I'm going to complete my tenure this year in 2023. I live in Sweden, and this is where I'm actually joining in from today. So a little bit of my journey also, to hoping that I inspire many of you sitting in the room to start involving yourselves very actively with this fantastic institution. Can we please go to the next slide? Can you please change the next slide? So my journey began with ICOMOS. I missed the complete story of Rohit and other colleagues who were actually establishing COMOS India, because I was a member directly with ICOMOS International. In 2006, I went to present a paper on cultural landscapes to the US. And actually that's probably where my active journey began. So that happened when I was in Bangalore. So there's a direct connection for me between RVCE and ICOMOS International, because that is where my journey started. Subsequently, I got very actively involved in the International Scientific Committee of Cultural Landscapes. This was from around 2013, 2014. And now I am a task force lead on nature culture integration. We work very actively with IUCN and other organizations. But there's a lot more happening in this domain of nature culture. And the reason I'm bringing it here to you today is that any member who's very interested in landscapes, cultural landscapes, should definitely involve themselves in the international ICOMOS, because this is where they can blossom and bring India onto the world stage. So one is the Connecting Practice project, which is a 10-year-long project between IUCN, and IUCN is the International Union of Conservation of Nature, and ICOMOS, and many other organizations like the Food and Agricultural Organization. And we keep involving it it's a project. So every year the project changes location. The image on the left is from the Hongehani terraces in China. And then the image, can you please keep it to the previous slide? And the image on the right is from the World Heritage Site of Visby in an island on Sweden. And then the bottom is where, when Rohit talked about the 2017 General Assembly, we brought the nature culture, or the culture nature journey, with WII, the Wildlife Institute of India, and gave it a big stage at Delhi. And I think for me, a lot of things started rolling from there. I was, so you can please go to the next slide now. After becoming part of the Cultural Landscape Committee in 2014 under Steve Brown, I became the Secretary General for this ISC, the International Scientific Committee, with Patricia McDonnell. She remains the president even now. And then as the board member, we started looking at many things that could be done, one of which was the ICOMOS Giving Day, which takes the nature culture interface as the main sort of platform, and there are awards given out. So, I encourage ICOMOS India members to register their projects for this particular ICOMOS Giving Day and win their awards and win grants to take their dream projects forward. And then We had our 50th anniversary celebrations of the ICOMOS ISC cultural landscapes. We have working groups within this cultural landscapes on nature cultures. We have many culture nature initiatives with IUCN, as I've mentioned. And we do a lot of projects as well, one of which I mentioned was the Connecting Practice project. Also, there is a participation in the World Heritage Leadership Program with ICROM. Next slide, please. Moving on from this whole culture nature initiative, I also want to talk about something which is where India has a huge role to play. It's the establishment of the International Scientific Committee on Water and Heritage. And I want to mention here that this scientific committee got established much later, but in India, the working group on water and heritage had already begun. And Priyanka, Sukrit, and so many other colleagues have been very active with this. And this is where I really hope to see India, COMOS or India ICOMOS to be very active, because this committee got set up when discussions were happening in Delhi in 2017 and subsequently in Taiwan in 2019, where there was an international conference. And this committee now is very active, going to the UN Water this year in 2023 in March, taking ICOMOS there on the world stage with the UN. So it all starts with the seed of an idea and a few individuals who are very motivated to bring the subject onto the world stage and to bring our country onto the ICOMOS and the world stage. And here I would like to bring a very small story forward, which is the picture on the bottom right, which is I had moved to Sweden in 2017. There was a lot happening on the Stockholm World Water Week, but culture was nowhere to be found. So I took the permission of ICOMOS International and ICOMOS Sweden to do something. And when we went to meet the Stockholm World Water Week Committee, they looked at me and said, we don't understand what heritage has to do with water, because we're talking about science and technology and clean water, clean tech and everything. And I remember that at that moment, my colleague almost collapsed hearing this conversation and said, we are not engaging with this anymore because this is really sad. And like Rohit mentioned about his battle with the COMOS, I decided that this was exactly the reason we had to engage with the Stockholm World Water Week or World Water Weeks, wherever they were going to be held. And I think something like 200 emails were exchanged. And eventually the small platform was set up with the Arab Regional Center of World Heritage, ICOMOS International, ICOMOS Sweden. And we actually did the event. And next year, the good news is that next year we actually got invited by UN Water to become part of their panel at the Stockholm World Water Week. So it starts with an idea. There's a lot of battle in the foreground, and then or rather in the background, because one never gets to hear of these. But then the journey begins, and then culture now is such a big part of the Stockholm World Water Week, I'm happy to say. Next slide, please. So this is an image from a very important event that happened in Japan. I say it's very important because we were presenting on water and culture, and we were presenting to the Emperor and Empress of Japan, who are actually very motivated about taking the water journey through the mode and the medium of culture. But this also is important to bring us in today, because this is the group of people who are taking ICOMOS to the world stage, to the UN Water. But I want to mention to the members sitting in the room and are digitally logged in here that there are quarterly meetings within the regional, the regional presentation, the regional committee of ICOMOS that happen. ICOMOS India is very active there. Please be involved, because there are so many projects and presentations and possibilities that come on these regional meetings. They happen every quarter. Kai Wise from Nepal and Tina Palermo from Philippines are very active. You can write to me if you want to know more about it, but Naveen and Shalini will also tell you more. So there are many committees within the regional committee of ICOMOS where you can become a member, you can participate, you can present your work to take it to, from the national to the regional to the international stage. So I really hope I'll see a lot more ICOMOS members, because I'm logged in every quarterly meeting as a board member from Asia Pacific. Next slide, please. So I wanted to say that there is a lot more that happens at the international board. A lot happens in the background, a lot happens in the foreground. It's a lot of time being spent. I am part of, besides being the lead for the nature culture integration on the ICOMOS board, I'm part of the membership task force. So please reach out to me if you want to be connected in any way to the ISCs, or any other forums internationally. I'll be very happy to help. I'm also actually leading the communication task force on the board. And for this, pretty much from the time I took on the role, I set up monthly meetings. The date and time was fixed right in 2020, December and 2021. And that continues till today in 2023. So that's a very good modus operandi of working, where we set up one day every month. And we said, I would be logged in. There are days when I may be the only person logged in, but I said, this is how it's going to be. And today we're in a great place because already the roadmap for communication is beginning. We have a communication officer at the Secretariat. So we hope that both internal and external communication on the ICOMOS International is going to see a new phase. We do a lot of quarterly board meetings, of course. We have to prepare for these. We have to read a huge, a lot of documents on it. But we also do emergency meetings for many, many reasons, when there's an international emergency or there's an emergency within ICOMOS that we need to talk about. I already spoke about the quarterly regional group meetings, which are very inspiring for me. I was part of the World Heritage Panel, also being an ICOMOS board member, which was in itself a huge learning curve for me to see how things are happening in the world, but also what an important and significant position we sit in to make an impact in the heritage conservations globally. And of course, I find one of the things that we need to take very seriously, and everyone in the room, many of the older members are very actively involved in this, but for the newer members, we need to look at advocacy in a very serious way. And Heritage Alerts is one platform or one means of doing it. So I've been involved with Heritage Alert workshops outside the board, but with other ICOMOS members, and also then forwarding the journey of Heritage Alerts happening within India. So I take that, India and Asia very seriously. Next, please. Besides what I have been doing on ICOMOS board, I've been very actively giving my time to ICOMOS initiatives. I really truly feel that ICOMOS is a platform which can change one's career journey. It has changed my career journey in many, many ways that I can't even describe. So I've been co-editor of thematic studies on water. So those of you in the room who are very interested in writing, editing, please get involved. ICOMOS is always looking for native English speakers, for their work. So please get involved. Please write to them, write to me if I can be of any help. I've also helped prepare, contributed to the glossary of the Connecting Practice project, which is the Nature Culture Initiative. And then I just mentioned that I've actually co-led with Reen Alatalu, the Heritage Alert workshops for international universities, where I have to say many young ICOMOS India members were the volunteers and leading the show with us. So next, please. I cannot end this address without talking about 2-point episodes. One was in 2014 with Rohit, Tara, Gurmeet, and other members, Vanika, when we went into Florence and we all, Rohit went onto the stage and said, India is going to be offering to host the 2017 General Assembly. So this was 2014 Florence. We were barely standing on our feet, and Rohit, in discussion with all of us and with ICOMOS India back home, said that we are going to be hosting the General Assembly. This was no small feat, because I remember after this announcement going to an ice cream parlor, a gelato parlor in Florence, and all of us sort of having to have ice cream to cool ourselves down, thinking, how are we going to do it? How in the world are we going to do it? And I get goosebumps talking to you right now, because from that point came this day, this last day of the General Assembly, where we brought in all the volunteers on stage to say that we had participation from more than 100 countries, more than 1,000 participants. I was the co-chair for the scientific symposium, and it was nothing short of only hard work of a few individuals and the support of all of these young people that we were the last General Assembly till this year, because the 2020 General Assembly got cancelled. And I am on the 2023 General Assembly scientific committees. And it's so wonderful to still hear India mentioned even after 6 years of the last General Assembly happening. So, thanks to Rohit for bringing me on in the January of 2017 to become the co-chair. But I have to also share a little part of my personal journey here. In the middle of these preparations, I had to move to Stockholm in August, and I came back to ICOMOS India saying, I'm now moving to Stockholm. How am I going to be part of this? I won't be able to do it. And ICOMOS India told me, well, you've taken on the responsibility. Do you think you'll be able to do it from Stockholm? And I said, maybe I can. Yes, I will take it on. And the one episode I want to share with the young people in the room especially is that you heard about the dedication in all of this conversation. These are not paid positions. I still remember that when I got the travel visa to travel to Stockholm because of my husband who works with Ericsson, I bought my ticket that night. I bought my ticket at midnight to go to India, from Sweden to India and back to Stockholm. And my husband thought I was completely crazy, because he was like, why are you buying this ticket now? We've not even reached Stockholm. I told him, just so that everyone in the family understands that I'm going to be back in India in December, come what may. I have no idea what I'm going to meet in Stockholm, but I have to be back in India in December. And the ticket got bought, and I reached India. It was a very tough few days of the symposium, and a huge thank you to everyone who was involved, because that is where India actually projected itself onto the world stage to, almost make the impossible possible, because the General Assembly was a fantastic show, a fantastic scientific collaboration. Greetings to ICOMOS at the COMOS for their 10th year. You have a huge, many decades ahead, and the engines for those discussions and conversations and everything that happens on the world stage and the India stage is going to be because of each person living in the room, and the many who have already contributed all the fuel to bring ICOMOS India to where it is today. So thank you very much, and thank you for your support for my wonderful innings on the board, which I complete this year. And thank you for your patience for listening to my long story. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we would like to invite Architect Shalini Dasgupta, Secretary, ICOMOS India, to take us through its 10-year journey. A few lines about Shalini Dasgupta. She's a conservation architect based in New Delhi and runs a multidisciplinary practice offering services in architecture, interior design, and conservation for the last 24 years. She has received her formal training under internationally noted B.V. Doshi, ADRJ for SEPT, Ahmedabad, and conservation studies from SPA, New Delhi. Since starting Heritage Conservation and Design Center in 1993, the firm has been focusing on adaptive reuse and putting historic buildings to contemporary use. The firm has a special interest and expertise in the field of hospitality with a wide range of clients ranging from Claridge's, Imperial, Lalit, ITC, Marriott, etc. Currently, she is actively involved in the urban conservation of the Braj region and the iconic sites of Khajuraho, Bodh Gaya, and Hampi. Over to you, ma'am.
RV College for giving ICOMOS this platform to celebrate its 10-year journey, and also the 75 years of independence, which was announced by our president in our AGM. And so I'll actually try to keep it short, because we've heard a lot of story from Rohit and Nupur. I'll try to just very quickly take you through the 10-year journey, major milestones, and where we are today. Rohit has given us the story from how ICOMOS got formulated. Arushi, just move ahead. Yeah. So like the legal formulation of COMOS India actually. So it's COMOS and not ICOMOS, like Rohit mentioned. So COMOS was formulated in 2012, and that's our legal entity, and we are a society registered under the Societies Act. So that is what our legal entity is today. And from 2012, we've been functioning under that legal entity. Arushi? We are a membership-based organization. So it is one of our main tasks, actually, of course, is the advocacy and, giving advisory on conservation is the mandate for ICOMOS International, which is passed on to all national committees. Like Rohit said, when they started in 2012 or back then in 2010, they were very handful of members. But today, our membership, stands at I can't read the number. Arushi, what's the number? We are 338 strong members today, starting from handful of 12 or 25 members, what Rohit had mentioned. So that's a long journey we have taken. Move on. This is just, small statistical, this thing we've given you, our journey from 14 onwards to 23, how our statistics in terms of memberships have moved. And we have been, we have been getting newer and newer interested young professionals wanting to join ICOMOS, which is a very positive trend. Move on. So the major milestones that we have, we have actually tried to, besides the membership, we have actually had many, we've had actually many committees and subcommittees which have got formulated over the years. We have a subcommittee formulated for publication subcommittee. We have the steering committee, we have the scientific council, we have we have a risk preparedness subcommittee. So there have been many of these initiatives which have been taken over the years. Move on to the next. ICOMOS India has, like we mentioned, that because we have the 6 zones and we want this representation to be there throughout, pan-India representation. So we ensure that our AGMs and scientific symposiums kind of get distributed over various zones. So this is kind of gives an overview of how in 2014, we started with, our AGM in the small conference room of SPA, and then we've moved on and we've had, a lot of institutional partners supporting us for all of our, scientific symposiums and AGMs. Move on. We've had many collaborations also, which we have, started with many organizations. DUHF has been one of them. We've had, some collaboration with CIME, TAC in Rajasthan, the Chief Minister's, Economic Council. Besides that, we've also had, are there any other things to the next? Okay, like all the others, what they mentioned, our ICOMOS India's journey actually, the General Assembly, which took place in 2017, I think was a changing point for ICOMOS India and its functioning also, because still before the General Assembly, like I mentioned, it was just a membership-based company, so organization, NGO. So we had our funding was very limited. It was only in the General Assembly that we managed to raise and get a lot of funds and got the government interested in our activities. We had the Ministry of Culture, we had many state departments of tourism, we had MOUD, we had many government agencies who recognized the work of ICOMOS India, and that's where we collected some bit of funding, which to date is actually supporting ICOMOS activities. And that's how we've taken our activities forward, where we have actually, introduced new scientific activities. There has been, we have these research grants that we are offering, which is a new development which we've done only after, the GA that happened. Next. So these are some other, the scientific work also we wanted, like you all know that NSCs, there are 21 NSCs, all NSCs are, they work hand in hand with the ISCs. So, but there was, when the new committee, which was formed this year from 2020, it was decided, that a scientific council was also created, because we wanted to give importance to the scientific work that happens in ICOMOS India. So there was a scientific committee and a steering committee to steer that scientific council was formulated. We have Professor Sanghmitra Basu from one of our steering committee members who's present here. And so this is a term also that we created, and a new this thing was added on into as one of our milestones. Move on. These are the, various subcommittees. Central Vista subcommittee was formulated, where Smita, as a North Zone coordinator, she, prepared this whole thing, which was, presented to the government of India. ICOMOS India concerns were put across to them. IIMA subcommittee was formulated, where ICOMOS India's reservations for IIM demolitions were also put across. And the other subcommittee that we also put in place was the publication subcommittee, because that was one sphere we thought there's so much of scientific work happening, so many professionals contributing. So we wanted to put that together as some form of publication, so that it could benefit our membership and people in the field. Move on. Another, we took on another important to inform our membership. We, because it was difficult for us to how to keep our membership abreast with all the activities which are happening within ICOMOS India. So we took on the challenge of doing quarterly newsletters. And this we started from 2020, and we have been every quarter, we have been, so we have, I think we have 9 newsletters, which we have been, have circulated till now, which kind of gives you an overview of all the activities which have happened, the NSC activities, the working groups, the zonal activities, everything that happens gets compiled and is sent across to all the members for them to know what, the activities are happening. Move on. So actually just, some in terms of where we are standing today. I've just kind of put some pointers as to what gaps we can dialogue on, as how ICOMOS India can further develop. So we still are lacking in our relationship with mainly the government departments and the institutions. We probably need more collaborative activities. We need to also look at, our publication is something which we are lacking behind, but today I'm happy to say that we are going to be announcing some of our publications which have been, which are almost ready to be launched. Our online, presence, our website is being, spruced, and, we are making it more user-friendly. Fund generation is one thing that we are totally, something that ICOMOS India really needs to work on, because like I mentioned, the only fund that we get is through our membership that we collect. And till besides that, the GA is what we collected, some sponsorships, but we need to figure out a very, very, more cohesive, formulate a process so that we can actually are not just dependent on the membership fund that we get. And the other important, thing, we need to streamline our process of the heritage alert, because there are a lot of heritage alerts and a lot of heritage that we keep hearing. We are losing every, second day we hear about it. And that's something that we need to formulate. And this is something, again, I've kind of put down some way forward, which actually is a take from the GAP. So we need to promote our scientific activities through our NSC grant programs. We need to promote our EPWG activities. I forgot to mention EPWG is one working group which got formulated. It was another new formulation. In 2017 in GA, it was announced as an international EPWG group, and in India, I think it got formulated in 2018. And we are today the second largest EPWG internationally. We have the second largest membership of EPWG members in India. We have actually, like Rohit had earlier mentioned, we are now into the digital age. So we have also managed to formulate a lot of our, streamline our digital platforms. So of course the Facebook was there all the time, but we now have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have all our, digital platforms, which are being managed by our secretariat. Move on. Okay, so thank you. I didn't want to take too much of time. I just want to, read out a small message. My final few words that I want to just put across is that in today's COVID pandemic times, conservation of heritage faces massive challenge. So the far-reaching network of ICOMOS India actually, which is spread, like everybody has told you, within the 6 zones in all corners of the country, it becomes even more relevant. So every member of ICOMOS India is a heritage warrior in their town, city, zone, or state, wherever they live in. So the membership is the actual strength of ICOMOS India, which has been growing with every passing year. And it has been our endeavor to empower the membership to undertake activities related to cultural heritage in their area of interest through the well-established network of various national scientific committees. We have been trying to facilitate and enable scientific dialogue among members of our fraternity so as to contribute toward the larger interest of safeguarding our country's heritage. Many new initiatives are undertaken, like the formation of scientific council, steering committee, standing committee on heritage at risk, NSC open house, new formal research projects, in-person scientific symposiums, and institutional members forum, along with a vast quantum of thought-inspiring webinars and workshops by all our members. So I leave you all with that note. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. The next event would be a showcasing of ICOMOS India's recap of 10-year zonal activities. So we would have each of the zonal representatives onto the stage. Firstly, we have architect Smita Makeja, North Zone representative. A few words about her. She established Avasena Studio in 1988 to work on conservation and architecture projects driven by processes where solutions are based on an in-depth understanding of local identity, continuity of shared heritage, sustenance of sensitive ecosystems, and socio-economic regeneration factors. Projects and research have been undertaken in Delhi, Ladakh, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand, Assam, and Mizoram. A visiting faculty at the Master's Program in Architectural Conservation, SPA New Delhi, for the Urban Conservation Studio and the thesis semester. She developed the core module on appropriate, sustainable, adaptive reuse of heritage resources to include heritage revitalization and taught it for more than 20 years. Engaged in public domain for appropriate heritage intervention action in Shahjahanabad through public interest litigations. She is also the co-author of the Delhi Declaration on Heritage and Democracy. Over to you, ma'am.
Friends, this has been a great moment to come here and participate with all of you. I want to thank the RV College of Architecture for hosting the event and making this intellectual exchange possible. I will just run you through. So the North Zone actually has the largest number of members in ICOMOS. And of course, this is something which we all need to change. We need to have more members from other zones. But it's also very interesting because we've looked at it and we've tried to think of, trying to not keep the zones isolated, to also find ways for zones to work together. So, okay. Yeah. Oh, great, great. So the North Zone, as I already said, our membership stands at 114 out of the 338 in the country. For our zone, we've listed priorities each year to bring the heritage professionals and the heritage custodians together to address issues which lead to a real value addition of heritage on ground for the communities residing in heritage areas. Our last attempt has been to work on the high altitude settlements and pick on thematic threads which tie the whole region together. So we have 114 members, 73 individual, 8 young professionals, 28 associate, 5 student. And institutional members still have to renew their membership, but we hope to have 2 on board. So our vision and objectives over the years has been that people can be the custodians for the living heritage. We've always looked at heritage not in isolation, but as a integral one component, which is the living heritage. And they can hand them over to the next generation, a historic landscape that can be loved and admired. They can build sustainability through a process of informed revitalization. This is important. It has to be informed, which means we have to have a body of research and a method of communicating that research to the people who will take action on the heritage. We as heritage professionals shall endeavor to put the processes in place for a better future. So World Heritage events over the years have always been very important for us. And I need to thank all the previous North Zone representatives, Shalini and Radhika and Urvashi, for giving me information. So this, we've had in 2019, we've had a symposium on rural landscapes. So in 2019, so we've had this as a challenge to save the, we had a 100-day challenge, and this was taken up with the Ansal University, and it was quite a successful event. Then we've looked at complex past and diverse futures in the historic urban context. Then the next year we looked at climate resilience and historic urban landscapes, inclusion for sustainability. These 2 events were done in collaboration with School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. We also try to make our knowledge base more extensive with exchange of knowledge from overseas experts. And I couldn't put together all the data because somehow the information isn't together. But the very interesting one which happened was with Zeynep Gul Unal, who spoke about the connected heritage and connected stories. And then we had Mario Santana talk about recovering the public spaces of Shahjahanabad through participatory conservation and ecological urbanism. And he spoke specifically of the role of the digital documentation in architectural preservation now, and about the techniques which even the students can use and collect data and analyze data without, within very short time. One very important milestone in the North Zone has been, because the GA was hosted in Delhi, so the North Zone participation was immense. And they also ensured that the cultural heritage practice exhibition was put up. And of course, all the dialogues happened in the North Zone, and the event preparations happened there. And we also sat and wrote the Delhi Declaration in Delhi. So it was quite extensive, I would say, exchange of knowledge year, as well as a year to build relationships, both with national and international people. Then we've had, we have had awareness campaign, which was for the Rajpath, which is the whole Central Vista area. We tried very hard for people to understand how it's not just an administrative government space, but it's actually a people's place. And somehow, in spite of working very hard on it, I don't think we have managed to achieve what we needed to achieve. But we've actually been able to put in process a methodology. And what we have really learned through the experiences that the members of ICOMOS, each of them have different skills. And if we put all those skills together, we can create a body of knowledge which can inform action. So here in 2020, we set up the Central Vista Working Committee. And then the working group undertook the task of actually studying all the documents, making drawings, understanding what are the aspects of significance which need to be respected for any action to be taken on the Central Vista. And what we really understood that in the past, all the town planners and the people responsible for action had actually refrained from destroying any of the heritage, while as the plan which was being proposed now was going to be something which would which would really threaten the heritage. One of the craziest thing on the plan was that they were even going to remove the National Archives building, but initial plan had it. They were going to remove the National Archives building. Yeah, and then we, then they realized that actually when they made the plan, they didn't even look at the listed buildings, which were part of a government document. It's not something hidden in any file. It's all in the public domain. So then studies were carried out, how the scale would change, how actually, because the Central Vista actually works as an organism. It's literally the green lung of Delhi. It connects with the ridge and the river both. All these factors were not being taken into account to make this redevelopment scheme. And we came up with this, I would say, a very well-researched document, which where all the heritage resources of the Central Vista were identified, the proposed interventions were studied, and the concerns and parameters were expressed. All this information was shared with all the government bodies who are in the process of making these plans, but we don't see the light of day here. Then we are, what we also enjoy doing is working with the young minds. And this is something we did with the Sushant University. We tried to see it as an experiment, how students can get involved in heritage. So we believe the heritage awareness has to be instilled into students right at the undergrad level, because you don't need to wait till postgrad to. So there are a number of ways of engagement we discussed, and we are following up on those. Then the other important thing we did was to make the observations and suggestions for the Delhi Master Plan the aspects for heritage, because the heritage in the master plan is not understood in its complexity. So the requirement for studying that heritage and coming up with plans which are place specific rather than you know, like just a few lines to treat the entire heritage as one, you know, one lump is not favored. Then we have sort of looked at a roadmap where we are looking at how to link people and institutions, and then to focus on research to inform intervention proposals. And I think this is very important, that our level of scholarship has to rise. We have to be able to predict what is going to destroy heritage. See, one thing is that we need to revitalize the heritage, but the other thing is that there is mass scale destruction happening. And how can we stop it? The only way we can stop it is if we raise our level of scholarship and we put in public domain those values and significance where the common man themselves, himself or herself, can understand what we are bringing to light. Because as we interact with institutions and with bodies which are making change, they do not consider, I mean, to the level that in the LG's office, I was told that Chandni Chowk is not heritage. So if the people who are actually making the change or the intervention to heritage do not even want to label it as heritage, I'm not even talking about going into depth and understanding the requirements for its significance to be enhanced or maintained, then we are in real trouble. So at North Zone, our aim is to contribute to the scientific agenda for conservation and management of cultural heritage, to bring Indian perspective with respect to its geographical diversity in two sections, the plains and the high altitude areas. The aim is to formulate small groups in different regions of similarity, put together the shared aspect of individual heritage entities. Advising government bodies on policy matter regarding heritage conservation is one of the objectives, especially to manage change and guide intervention. While there are diverse viewpoints in many heritage-centric organizations working on cultural heritage in the country, it is crucial to forge synergies, synergies to meet a common goal and view these organizations as collaborators. Partnering with institutions and bringing them in to participate and become members will be our goal. For members, our endeavors are towards encouraging the professionals from the various NSCs and EPs to become members of the ISCs and represent India in different ranks internationally. We will strive to engage emerging professionals in a more efficient way in functional and ideological aspects of ICOMOS North Zone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we would have architect Poonam Trambadia West Zone representative ICOMOS to address us. Before that, a few words. Architect Poonam Thrambania started practice based in Ahmedabad since 2006, working as consultants with organizations like Archaeological Survey of India, INTAC, World Monument Funds, Municipal Corporations of Ahmedabad, Rajkot, and other NGOs, and private heritage owners. Recently worked as European Union supported CHMV lab in Ahmedabad, and currently also working on research project for temple architecture of Western India. She's teaching architecture since 2008, initially as lecturer at Government Polytechnic, and now as associate professor with Anant National University. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon. West Zone again is, I think, one of the other second largest zones of India, spanning from Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Div Daman, Dadra Nagar Haveli, and Goa. And also has been one of the second largest membership groups across India. Next. Okay. Just a bit of statistics that we again started with a very few number of members, and luckily we have been growing in numbers from 58 to almost 117. Though this year we have seen a little setback, a few members have not joined, but we are hoping to bring them back abroad. Next. Okay. The main motto of the group has always been to bring more membership to the to ICOMOS India, and one of the main mottos when I joined as a West Zone representative, and before me Saurabh Marathe was also the West Zone representative, has been to engage youth in heritage. And so through that, we have conducted many activities engaging youth, not only of colleges, but also at school level and community level participations. Starting from 2005, following the same ideology, the first understanding and collaboration with National Students Institute of Architecture and guiding the LIK trophy with Saurabh Marathe as the West Zone representative, and conducting 2 juries for the same. And then the site walks and taking giving an understanding of the West Zone as a heritage to the General Assembly members during the G8 2017. Moving forward, bringing the General Assembly, the AGM and Scientific Symposium, as Shalini has mentioned, that we divide it into various zones and we try and see that every zone is activated. So in 2017, we had it in Ahmedabad, and again with the understanding, because at that point of time, ideations were going on and to make Ahmedabad as a World Heritage City. And so the idea was to understand that what is heritage to a city, what are the changes, transformations, and how can we engage youth in the same. And so for the same thing, we had involved not only members of ICOMOS, but a lot of members of ASI, State Archaeology, Yatradham Vikas Board, educational institutes, because youth was one of the main thing, and then a panel discussion on the same. The same year, because there was this understanding of taking the whole documentation of Ahmedabad as an understanding, and institutions were going to be involved in it. So in collaboration with Council of Architecture, we had taken a faculty development workshop to make faculties aware of what is the level and how different aspects of heritage and historic areas can be developed, so that they can further it with the students to document the heritage of India. In 2019, we thought that why not take youth to heritage rather than every time conducting meetings and conferences and seminars inside halls, we thought, let us go to the people. And so we took a group of students and we did a community skit highlighting what heritage is and how it can happen and how people can be involved in it. And this is the Dalpatram Chowk in Ahmedabad, where so the zonal meeting and the 18th April event of World Heritage Day was conducted in the community of Ahmedabad, taking them together with the youth of Ahmedabad. Then various heritage alerts, because once people came to know of ICOMOS, people started approaching us because a lot of heritage buildings was getting destroyed, either demolished or broken. They started approaching us as zones and they started requesting whether something can be done further or not. 3 major heritage alerts were taken in that point of time. Esplanade mentioned. One of the other one was the Gita Mandir gate of the bus stop in Ahmedabad, and the third one was IIM Ahmedabad. Again, furthering the idea of youth and heritage, this is the young girl who is the ambassador, and she has represented Ahmedabad at the level of UNESCO. And so this was organized to engage school children and make them understand that how they can also be contributors in preserving and conserving the heritage of India. The other program which was taken with the UNESCO Volunteers Program, whereby this is conducted every year, whereby they bring volunteers from various groups, various youth groups or elder groups, and conduct various programs into bringing awareness, understanding heritage, promoting heritage of the region. So this was done in 2021 with UNESCO, ICOMOS India, and the UNESCO Volunteers Group. The other thing which was undertaken in 2021 was the training and capacity building program, again considering youth, because they had approached us that whether we can take an understanding of cultural landscape, of documenting of cultural landscape, and inculcate it from a very early age into architectural education. And so this whole exercise was taken with BRICS Pune. Various experts from ICOMOS and non-ICOMOS areas, taking not only conservation architects and people from field of heritage conservation, but also taking environmentalists, wildlife experts, people understanding settlements in forest areas, and with a series of online, offline webinars and site studies taken up with a group of students from the BRICS Pune, and finally hoping to culminate into a handbook publication. A lot of people were involved, like Suryanarayana, Murthy, Nupur Prothi, and then other wildlife experts like Raman and Girish, who were talking about the wildlife sanctuaries and how wildlife needs to be looked in with the settlements of that region, because they cannot be separated. So these are the various activities which were conducted during these, and also taking the understanding, because it was training and capacity building. So it was not only West Zone and historic cities and towns, but it's also cultural landscape and also the NSC of capacity building and training. Taking it forward, we are again looking at youth and all. There are 2 ideas which have come up in discussion with the members of the group. One is the idea of looking at museums, its understanding of to the youth. So this is one which we are wanting to take forward as a series of webinars. It is still under construction, but we'll be putting it soon. And the other is with the understanding and documentation of Tilari. We are looking at taking different workshop across the zone with different theme-based workshops for anybody who wants to understand heritage and documentation. So that is from me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we would have Mr. Dilip Chandra to address us. A few lines about him. Dilip Chandra is a retired leading highway engineer of PWRD of Assam. He comes from a historical, noble and traditional family background and has maintained his place in society as a leading percussionist. He continues to research all the Satriya music of his father or guru, the famous music scholar, the late Keshab Academy, New Delhi. He has also published 2 other scholarly books on music and culture in his own style. He is currently studying 7th century hand gesture scripture and a 17th century Vaishnava musical rhythm scripture and will publish the translation with commentaries of the same. He has also published 30 papers on music and cultural subject. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. We are my brothers and sisters and colleagues. I come from Guwahati, far remote area of India. And we noticed on actually born 3 years ago in the great situation of pandemic COVID-19. At that period, we can organize our organization, but we contact each another via video and via phone. But we have a great vision what to do for this region. And we discuss, we have another factor is we have only that time only 6 members. And out of them, 3 is not live in this region. They live in other area of India. And we only 3 persons live in this region, 2 in Guwahati and 1 in Nagaon. Then we have thinking what to do now. Then we discussed and we make a mission to the nation as well as to the international level that was unfold Northeast, because Northeast is a sacred place, Northeast is a remote place. The subject of the Northeast are not known by other part of India, other part of world. And in this mission, we start first our webinar, first our discussion, online discussion about the great agricultural festival of our Northeast region, the Bihu. Just like Bengal's Durga Puja, Calcutta's Durga Puja, Bihu is our national festival of Assam in the year 2020. And it is totally success. And we have all of the international, national level and local level participants appreciate us that this is a colorful and beautiful, knowledgeable subject we have present. Accordingly, the next year, that is 2021, we arrange one essay competition to award a general publics and other scholars. Then we have done another old Indian raga-based song called Borgit. You have know that Dhrupat is a cultural heritage of India, and Dhrupat's father, that is the other forms of the Dhrupat, this Prabandhagit, and Prabandhagit exists in Assam at the same properties, and we have presented it that this is the Borgit the properties of Purvanda Git are exist in the Git, so it will be a World Heritage, and it is success. Experts are recommended that you have proceed to make it the World Heritage. Then you have there is a place called Mayong. The magic of Mayong is all of our world popular. We have done one webinar about the Mayong in the year 2021. And in this webinar, we have got above 1,000 participants who participate from all over the world. Then in this year, we have done another potential heritage of identify the potential heritage of World Heritage Site in the Northeast region, and there is a webinar. It is another successful webinar, but the last one, you know that Assam and the Northeast region is deprived last about 2012 about the one World Heritage Site called Majuli, and Majuli is still pending as a World Heritage Site, and we have done an effort with the help of Professor Nalini Thakur, Mr. Suryanarayana, our secretary, Shalini Dasgupta, etc. help us to make a webinar and a discussion about the bottleneck and remedies, why it is not going to the World Heritage Site. And this is very difficult to participate the government level, then the dossier prepare persons, previous dossiers prepare persons, and the local Mausolean people and the other scholars. But we made it, and it is great success, and they all are now going on. The government says, and local people inform us that the work which have to done as per guideline of the UNESCO is going on, and the dossier after that the dossier will be prepared. And this is our achievement in the last 3 years. And another good news for our colleagues and others, that we have got 2 webinars from the ICICAs. They advise us to do 2 webinars. One is about the Nangkram dance of Meghalaya. This is very sacred dance and very traditional dance. And another is one language which is practiced by the Vaishnavite people of Assam. This is called Brajavali from the 13th century. And we have going to discuss it in this coming year. That is our achievement and goal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before proceeding with the next presentation, I would like to make an announcement regarding the arrival of Dr. Arun Menon, IIT Chennai NSE Counselor, ICOMOS India, and of Mr. Bipin Chandra, Superintending Archaeologist, Bangalore Circle. We are honored to have you with us today, sir. And we'd like to welcome them with an applause. Okay. I'd like to invite architect GSV Suryanarayana Murthy, South Zone representative, to apprise us.
Let's share the presentation. So after the presentations from North Zone, West Zone, Northeast Zone, we have a brief of South Zone comprising Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Kerala, Andaman Nicobar Islands, and Maldives. Comprising these states and union territories, we have in this 10 years various activities, not only concerning to tangible heritage, but also intangible heritage. And we have membership ranging from 20 members in the beginning to now currently totally around 85 members have registered till now. Currently there are about 47, 48 members who have renewed their membership and on the membership list right now. So currently we have around 45 members, totally around 80 members across 10 years. We have from 20 to 45 members altogether. Vision and objectives, as stated earlier by other zones, it is broadly similar. The most important aspect I would like to emphasize upon, and what we have been trying is to have this standard procedures of operation across the zone and across the membership. So that is how we have put this objectives as the members themselves come up with proposals and it is taken forward to the national committee and we take up activities, but we encourage mostly the scientific approach driven activities and working towards this national scientific committee activities. And the matters of world heritage we have been emphasizing, and especially from the South Zone to make the membership to be active participants in the activities of world heritage internationally and nationally, because the activity that happens internationally on world heritage sites, we also need to be part of it. So in order to make that, we need to interact with the institutions working, that is Archaeological Survey of India and other institutions which are working directly at the international level. So I have been emphasizing from South Zone in all the across all these years and in the meetings that were conducted. So in 2015, one of the major event that was conducted by Kerala by one of our members, intangible heritage representative, intangible from Kerala, Mr. Venugopal, B. Venugopal, who is a retired scholar and expert in intangible heritage, and which was conducted during the floods of Kerala. Immediately after that, the disaster response and risk preparedness workshop was conducted, and also guidelines were prepared for 4 days of workshop that was conducted. And 2017, South Zone played, when during that time, Pankaj Modi from South Zone was the South Zone representative, and he was part of General Assembly. And there were many activities and posters prepared, and the research work was displayed during the General Assembly 2017 and 2019. ICOMOS members, and usually every year, whenever there are sites of World Heritage to be nominated for World Heritage, UNESCO World Heritage status nomination, there are members from ICOMOS India who would be part of these activities and operations. So during 2000, from South Zone in this Ramappa Temple World Heritage nomination dossier, there were, other than the members who prepared the nomination dossier, they were made part of the observers who would observe when the ICOMOS International inspection happens on the site for World Heritage nomination. So in 2020, one of the major event, Dr. Arun Menon is also here, and the collaboration with IIT Madras, we conducted this annual general meeting, was supposed to happen in person at IIT campus, but due to this pandemic situation, this happened online. It was a very successful and big event, first online big event, because of the pandemic we had to do. And the publication also is going to be ready shortly. In 2020, this was conducted with IIT Madras collaboration by ICOMOS India. In 2021, there was collaboration with Osmania University, Hyderabad, for cultural landscape, and with the geography department of Osmania University. And there were many activities with cultural landscape in 2020, 21, 22, many online activities, which was also mentioned by our West Zone representative, Poonam. In 2021, that was conducted. And 2022, there was a heritage walk, special heritage walk conducted on World Heritage Day in Hyderabad, in collaboration with Deccan Heritage Academy in Hyderabad, and Kakatiya Heritage Trust in Warangal. After the World Heritage inscription was made for Kakatiya Rudreshwara Temple, there was a UNESCO World Heritage Volunteers Program, which is very much appreciated, and there were participants across the country, and there were also some 10 international participants conducted on site World Heritage Volunteers Program. And you are going to see one of the participants writing a scientific paper and presenting it in this symposium tomorrow or day after tomorrow. And one of the topics is on the experience of participating in this World Heritage Volunteers Program. What are the benefits to an architecture student, an archaeology student, a history student, and what are the prospects of participating in such workshops? What is the future of these young professionals when they learn about heritage in the actual real context? So this workshop has paved way, and this was in collaboration with ICOMOS India. There were many speakers from ICOMOS India membership and scholars from ICOMOS India membership who made lectures, who delivered lectures, and also demonstrated some of the scientific aspects of these heritage structures. One of the senior professors from NIT Warangal, Professor M. Pandurangarao, who had demonstrated the scientific aspects of historical structures that could be learned, and he had demonstrated it on site with some of the scientific principles that exist in these structures. And conducted several workshops with national scientific committees of ARSA and cultural landscapes, cultural tourism. Many members from our zone, South Zone, from Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh have participated in this. the main way forward that is thought out is towards pushing towards more for active participation of membership in the matters of World Heritage, and tie-ups with government and academic institutions, like the way the West Zone has conducted with the academic and North Zone has conducted. So like the one that is happening now with RVCA is a very big event that is happening in the South Zone. So involvement of all the states in these events, we are looking forward to involve all the states involved in the zone, and also ensuring national scientific participation of the members in these national scientific committees, so that they are engaged in the scientific activity of the organization. So with this, I conclude my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, ICOMOS India shall present an overview of the Master Plan 2022-2023. Architect Aditi Rai, EPWG National Representative, and Architect Saranya Dharshini, ex-EPWG National Representative, shall be presenting to us. A few words about them. Architect Aditi is also an urban planner. Her research interests and practice stem from the confluence of real estate development, infrastructure financing, heritage management, and SDG 2030 localization. She currently sits as the consultant for the economic advisory line of services at PricewaterhouseCoopers India, and also contributes as a selected United Nations SDSN LPF Fellowship Mentor for the 2022 cohort. In addition to the mentioned engagement, she is a World Economic Forum Global Shaper and the National Representative for Emerging Young Professional Group and coordinator for the National Scientific Committee for Historic Towns and Villages at ICOMOS India. She is a graduate from UN SDSN LPF Fellow and is the winner of ICOMOS India NSC Research Grant for the year 2021. A few words about architect Saranya Dharshini. She is a conservation architect with experience in conservation of medieval forts, Dravidian temples, Mughal gardens, and Victorian buildings. Coordinator, Heritage and Gender, UN Sustainability Development Goals. Along with conservation and heritage management, she is also active in teaching, research, and heritage advocacy, including preparation of UNESCO nomination dossiers. Her interest lies in people-centered conservation approaches and community participatory traditional practices. She is a two-time recipient of the UNESCO Asia Pacific Cultural Conservation Award. Her latest publications include The Heritage of the Olympic Games Future Outlook, World Heritage List and Way Forward, and Role of Women in Subterranean Waterscapes of India. I would now invite Saranya Dharshini and architect Aditi Rai.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Saranya. This is going to be more like a duo act between Aditi and me. So I will, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so to give an overview, I will be starting with how this plan
Aditi,
was.
I think you're on mute. Kindly unmute yourself.
Saranya will be taking up with the first half of the presentation and I'll follow up with the second. So Saranya, you can go ahead. I'll unmute myself up for now.
I hope people can hear in Bangalore. So I will be giving an overview of how the beginnings of this master plan, and then Aditi will be taking over on the activities that has been so far conducted and what's in the pipeline for the future. To give an overview, what is about this master plan is that this the idea began in 2021 itself when the EPWG came into term in 2020. And from that, this idea grew because the 75th year of independence and what we perceive as, not only the emerging professionals, but the larger context of ICOMOS India, what and how and where we are at this moment in time in the heritage profession, and what do we want in the next 25 years is what this idea started from. To bring this idea, a narrative, and how do we bring, because India is a vast country, we are multicultural, we are very proud of it, but how do we bring about all of this in, in one narrative? It was something that it took a while for us to get all of this together and eventually, initiate activities within this. So it was about how India is like, a new republic when independence happened, but an ancient country. We have a, huge and rich history that just goes back in time. And the conservation aspect of it is that we see as before and after independence is something that looks into being uninterrupted, because even in the past, there was conservation happening in our country, but how do we look at it as before and after colonization? The colonized conservation aspects itself, because there were quite a few acts and, manuals that came during the British period that has paved the path for the way some things work within the country itself. So looking into that. One interesting thing was the conservation school of thought itself. We have here Dr. Nalini Thakur herself, and how these aspects made a huge impact. The emergence of SPA, SEPT, students returning from York, and this culminates into that idea of what was their impact. The heritage in the arts, these were like the emerging professionals then, and how they were growing, and now they have become expert members. What's their point of view? What's the outlook? How they saw what were the hits and misses from then to now? And heritage now, where what is our ideas? Where are we? And what is the vision that we are looking forward to or we envisage? World Heritage Convention, this was last year at 50 when this master plan was initiated. What was happening in the convention itself, and how are we looking into the future of World Heritage? And the important goal of this master plan is, what do we see in the future? What are we planning to do in the next 25 years, so that as emerging professionals right now, what are we giving for our next emerging professionals within the next 25 years? Over to you, Aditi.
So as discussed by Saranya, told by Saranya, that we were a group of members who came together. Apart from the EPWG zonal and national representative, we have few other members from Scientific Steering Committee, Scientific Council, as well as EXCOM, who came together and started curating how the activities would be planned, how we'll be discussing about the fundings, how to take ahead the upcoming steps. Please go to the next slide. Next slide, please. When we talk about the projects have been distributed in different geographies, and each of the zonal reps have been anchoring those projects in terms of coordination as well as leading. So when we talk about the master plan exhibition, which is a pan-India exhibition and captures the essence of the whole theme that we have been talking about, that Saranya has explained. Then another is basically the project Outdoors, that has been centered in North Zone, but it's expanding to other geographies in India. We have the Future of Unlisted Heritage, that is coordinated by Nigar Sheikh, and she is coordinating with other members within her team from the West Zone. Heritage Walks at 75, that plans to do 75 heritage walks all over 1 year, is basically coordinated by Kritika Mohan, who is a Northeast Zone EPWG rep. The Heritage and Education Project, is coordinated by Lakshmi, who is a South Zone rep, and Sukrit Sen from East Zone is helping her out in basically conducting all the activities for this particular project. Next slide, please. I would like to just go through all the projects and very briefly talk about them, what exactly we are doing, what we have already achieved, and what we are thinking of going ahead with. So the first project is basically outdoors, which is anchored at the North Zone, and we are expanding to other zones also. There are 4 initiatives that we have taken up within this particular project, where we are doing heritage walks. We are also developing blogs that talks about interlinkages between heritage as well as SDG. Then we are also looking at various other aspects where we can organize a symposium or basically a webinar series to discuss these interlinkages. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I'll just begin a little and define the projects here, the initiatives here. The heritage walks and workshop, we have already conducted 3 heritage walks, and the idea of doing these heritage walks is a little different from generally how we do at ICOMOS or any other level. We are trying to target the sensitive groups of the community. For example, we have done a heritage walk at Humayun's tomb with in collaboration with THE for children who cannot see. So we are looking at and we are doing various other workshops for underprivileged children also that basically develops an idea and inculcates values regarding their heritage and what is it and how you can go ahead in conserving and managing it. We have done other few walks with the general public, and we have planned that whatever funding we are receiving from these walks will be invested in organizing walks for the sensitive groups. Then we are also developing a pocket list of the in-city adventures. That means a pocket list of all the sites a city has and that can be visited by the citizens. The parameters of mapping such sites is basically, is it child-friendly? Do we have a bicycle track? Such type of parameters, which is very different from generally how a travel website maps them. And we have developed a website also for the same, and I can share the link also with you all. And the website includes all of these initiatives, all of these walks that we are talking about. The second last is the blogs, where we are actually developing establishing interlinkages between heritage and SDGs. So we have developed 2 blogs till now, which is society and people and economic and consumption. And this is already published on our webpage. We are going ahead with other 3 blogs that talks about nature and environment and heritage, habitats and infrastructure and heritage, and peace and governance and heritage. The last is basically a webinar series, which we are collaborating with NSC HTV, and it will be 9 months or a year-long webinar series where we are still trying to jot down the thematic areas and develop the whole concept note. Next, please. The second project is heritage and education, where we are basically aiming to conduct events in collaboration with schools and colleges. This is anchored by Lakshmi, who is a South Zone representative for EPWG. And we have planned a series of activities that focus on interactive ways of encouraging the younger groups, where they can identify and build upon knowledge as well as spread awareness in this particular process regarding heritage and education. This is a pan-India project, and currently the team has developed a concept note, and they have circulated it among the other team members, and we are discussing collaborations also. One is the CEPT University, which is already an institutional member, and we are trying to develop a program with CEPT University. Other 2 are basically a workshop on climate change and awareness, connecting water footprints and aspects of water and music, which Sukrit is very equipped with, who is a E-Zone representative, and he's helping Lakshmi out in this process. And the third is basically a concept development for a pan-India activity for school and children aimed to be conducted by IDMS in 2023 itself. Next, please. This project is basically 75 heritage walks, where the team plans to conduct 75 walks around a timeline of 1 year or a little more than that. And we have shortlisted 4 themes, which are listed here in the slide also, for sites that are associated with independence movement, especially with women heroes. The second theme is lesser known heritage sites. The third is few pilgrims or trade route circuits. And the fourth is World Heritage Sites. The team has already conducted 5 walks at different geographies of India, and they are further planning to conduct more walks in the upcoming few months. Next slide, please. This project is basically an exhibition, which is a pan-India, event. It will be obviously organized at one geographical location or online, and the focus is basically into 4 different aspects. That is education, policies, practice, and future. That is related to heritage and culture, and it tries to capture the what is the future of conservation pedagogy in the next 25 years. The essence of that. It is anchored by Saranya, Dharshini, and also supported by Shalini, Dasgupta. And most probably we'll be having this exhibition online on the website that we are developing for this project. We'll soon be publishing that website also, and you can view the details of the project in that particular website. Next slide, please. The last project, that is the future of unlisted heritage, where the team aims to recognize the honorable freedom fighters engaged in India's freedom struggle and conserving their memory by locating their homes, meeting places, sites of importance, which hold significance during the struggle, but are now unknown or forgotten. And there are 3-4 outcomes that is intended for this particular activity that you can see on the slide itself. The activity is anchored by Nigar Sheikh, who is a West Zone EPWG representative, and she is working with Amruta as well as Dr. Shika Jain for this particular project and curating the same. We'll soon be releasing forms where you can, each member of ICOMOS India can actually talk about or list down those sites, and we can take them up for our further activities. Please go to the next slide. This is a snapshot of the webpage that we are developing for Masterplan, and we'll be publishing it soon in the upcoming week. Each of the members can actually go and look at the details of this project. You can also pitch for volunteering as well as collaborating with us as an NSC or a working group or any other external organization, and see how we can work together in achieving the goals that we have set for Masterplan project. Can you please go to the next slide? These are basically the contact cards which we'll share with you regarding each of the projects, and you can reach out to us if you want to collaborate or any other doubt queries you have regarding this particular initiative. Thanks a lot. That's it from my end.
Thank you, Architect Aditi Rai and Saranya Dharshini. Next, we'll move on with the felicitations. As part of Parampara 75, ICOMOS India is pleased to recognize and honor the contributions of Professor Nalini Thakur towards heritage, conservation, research, education, and practice. A few words about Professor Nalini Thakur. Professor Nalini Thakur was the former Dean, School of Planning and Architecture, and head of the Architecture Department, New Delhi. She joined SPA in 1977 to work on an exhibition on Imperial Delhi as research associate, participated in the institutional research project, Divi Seema, Andhra Pradesh, cyclone and tidal wave disaster. Since 1980 to 2017, she has been a full-time faculty at SPA at both the Architecture and Conservation Department. She was also the first Charles Wallace Scholar from India to be sent to the University of York to do specialization in architectural conservation. She started her professional career as a member of the famous group Conservation Society Delhi from 1982 to 1997. Over the years, she has contributed as a professional, an academician, a teacher, mentor, and an activist. Primarily, she has contributed to academia as faculty at SPA Delhi, developing the new master's program in architecture, which depended completely on her initiatives at that time when the discipline was emerging. She has developed various sound practices of conservation through many experimental projects, such as St. James Church and Mehrauli, in Delhi, World Heritage Sites of Khajuraho, Champaner, Pavgarh, and prepared the integrated management plan for Hampi for the Archaeological Survey of India that contributed to the removal of the site from the endangered list. From the government of Manipur, the conservation of Kangla Fort as an archaeological park. Now she is relocated to Chennai after retirement, yet she still stays active in the areas of research in historical architecture and design in historical contexts. I would like to invite Professor Nalini Thakur onto the stage to receive the honors. And I'd like to invite Dr. O.P. Bawane, Principal RVCA, and Architect Shalini Dasgupta, Secretary ICOMOS India, to do the honors. I'd like to request Professor Nalini. Yes, please.
I would like to just add here that it's a privilege for me to present the plaque to Nalini ma'am, because she has been one of my mentors and I've learned whatever about conservation from her. So it's really a privilege for me, and we are really honored for Nalini, for you to accept this from ICOMOS India. I would invite you to come and say a few words for us.
You know, this is very unexpected for me, because I have always been doing what I want, and it has never been, it has not made me, you know, what do you call, you know, what, it's always made me very controversial and disliked, okay? But today, I mean, from RV and, you know, and ICOMOS, I mean, suddenly I really now understand that all those many students who were with me for about nearly almost 30 years, who never said much when I said whatever I wanted, they were always quite silent about it, but they went out and continued to work in the field and the profession in their way. So it's really great for me today to see this, to receive this honor, you know, and this award from this group that I have been very close to. Let me tell you, I have been very close. You know, I have not been somebody who was very popular or wanted to be popular with students. I just had this other thing in my mind, and I went on at it, you know, which was conservation and heritage, and nothing disturbed me from that, you know. So that's, and you know, so I never expected anything, okay. And somehow, I mean, so this is it. I really came, you know, and I'm really grateful and really touched by this, you know, ICOMOS award. I'm talking about the same time as Rohit had talked about this rather terrible India ICOMOS that existed. Let me tell you that my school, the institution where I was working was the core of that ICOMOS. My predecessor who worked was the secretary. And, you know, it is very, you know, it's like that. But I decided I will never join this ICOMOS because it's not doing, I will do everything myself and be better than all of them together. That was what was, you know, I resolved. right in the beginning. And I think it was that resolve that kept me on my path all the time without going out. But yeah, I must tell you that what happened is now I don't find a place anywhere, because my whole approach and what I think education has to be for architects, and because I think it's architects, they also have to be as close to historical architecture, because they cannot leave it out anymore, is that I now, it's actually it's still very challenging, and it requires a paradigm shift. And no one thinks about what I have been thinking about. And it is necessary. I don't know, it'll take about 20 years, 30 years, never. We will lose our heritage. That's all that will happen. So, and now this whole thing which I've been doing for about so many years is become a meta model in my brains, in my mind. And I know exactly when I see what I have to do at that point. But still there's so much there. And there are lots of these, diagrams which are there, and that's where it is. But well, that, when somebody from your college actually rang me up and said he would like me to do something, do a talk recently. So I said, see, what I say is not even understood by most people. So what do I say, It is, so I will just keep to myself, think about it, okay? But I think now I feel there's a big difference after having got this award, so that I don't need to feel so negative about it, I think there has been some, what is it called? People have, sort of it's gone down, and they have, it sort of reflected, and slowly they have developed. You see, and one thing in education is you can't, you don't tell people do this and do that. You have to leave it, and it is up to them, others, to pick up. It's a very free way of working, So so I feel very, sort of, feel good. And I also feel very, hopeful that things may happen. And I will keep on doing what I have to do my way. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, RV College. Thank you, ICOMOS, because I mean, it was such a surprise, I must say, and it's a good organization for me to be honored by. That's also very important to me, So that is why it is important to me, because when I taught, I was, teaching, which I had called the Johann Sebastian Bach model. I don't know whether if you ever read that paper I've written. Sebastian Bach also, he never got too many people giving him work to do, like other famous, people who are composers. What he did was, he was working in a choir in a church, and he composed some music every week for that choir, and practiced, and they sang it. So, I think what was important is that you have to be in the right place. You must have the right group with you who can actually absorb it and make sense and take it on after you, and just like he did. And he is the best and the most famous composer in Western music. And it is something that has come out from his choir in a little church. So that is what, it's important. And that's why I really don't think it's important to get too much money and all that. It is that you have to find ways of working, showing what you are, what you want to do, and how to do it, and keep at it all the time. And then it's all value. It's all value. Today, those people are like monkeys, they don't understand. But later, they might, when they improve, they will understand. And then it is a win-win situation, So that's what I would say, that's this. And so really, Shalini, don't think about money, because you make yourself more valuable. And that everybody wants. and think about it, because there are many ways of doing it. We don't think of all the ways we can do. That's all. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was an honor to have you today with us at RVCA Campus. And I think the best takeaway from whatever you spoke with us was a certain perseverance and having faith and conviction in one's own ideas and thoughts. And even the modus operandi, even if it's an individual, we have a conviction on what we do, we can achieve success. Thank you, ma'am. Next, ICOMOS India would like to recognize and honor the contributions of ASI towards heritage conservation research, education, and practice. I would like to invite Mr. Bipin Chandra, ASI representative, Superintending Archaeologist, Bangalore Circle. Please, I'd like to invite you on stage to receive the honors, sir. And I'd like to invite Dr. O.P. Bawane and architect Shalini Dasgupta again to do the honors. Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Bipin Chandra to speak a few words.
I express my gratitude to the principal, RV College, and Chairman ICOMOS India, Mr. Naveen Piplani, and I'm thanking you, all of you, for inviting ASI and honoring me, and on the behalf of my DG ASI, I am thanking you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, ICOMOS India would like to honor the contributions of INTAC towards heritage conservation research, education, and practice. Unfortunately, all the Bangalore representatives are traveling. So the President, ICOMOS India, Dr. Naveen Piplani, will deliver the honor directly to the Delhi office. However, we are also happy to announce that INTAC Bangalore chapter will be collaborating with us to host the Heritage Walk on Sunday as part of Parampara 75. Next, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Professor Jaisim Krishnarao. Professor Jaisim Krishnarao is an architect and former chairman of the Indian Institute of Architects Karnataka chapter. His work has been featured in the New York Times, the Hindu, the Times of India, the Deccan Herald, and on HGTV. Professor Jaisim attended the Madras Christian College School. He completed his university education in architecture in 1966 from Madras University. From 1966 to 1970, he worked with the architectural firm of L.M. Chittale and Sons, Madras. In 1970, inspired by Ayn Rand's novel, The Fountainhead, he started an architectural practice under the name Jaisim Fountainhead. The practice grew from 1970 to 1975, winning a national competition for the Cochin Stadia President's nomination for the Small Industries Pavilion and the Taj Fisherman's Cove. Ever since, Professor Jaisim has been contributing to both academia, practice, and building a synergy amongst the architectural fraternity over the years. Now I'd like to invite Professor Jaisim onto the stage to deliver the keynote.
Namaskars to all the young ones. Doesn't matter. If you can off these lights, I'll be the happiest. Thank you. Technology has grown too much. Art has died. Art with technology is the fusion that is architecture. Unfortunately, we are pushing too much on heritage. It is her age. I comes in between. India, or the subcontinent, which moved into the Asia billions of years ago, is the only space which takes a parampara. It does not have a written, deliberate history. You go to the West, you go to US, you go to Russia, you go to China, you go to Japan. I've traveled all over. They're all written dead. All their heritage is dead. That's why they want to conserve it. We don't have to. We are the heritage. We are alive. I'll be a little more blunt on this. I don't care if people throw me out. I've been thrown out all my life. She threw me out by 1975. What happened from 1975 to 2023? I don't know. To most people, COVID was an exasperation. To me, COVID was the greatest inspiration. After COVID, I've never traveled out because there is so much to discover within your mind that you finally realize you know nothing. JK was a great philosopher who inspired me beyond even Ayn Rand. The only thing JK told me very clearly when I was very young, sitting under a banyan tree and another beautiful tree in Madras, Nerada. I was a young architect afterwards, called me. I know you've been invited to do the Rishi Valley School and the school here, but none of that should be a memory to anybody. The building, the architecture should disappear. I really was dumbstruck. That's why whenever somebody calls me and said, so your building so-and-so is being modified or changed or being broken, I said, wonderful. That's what should happen. Only then your life grows. Otherwise, the past anchors you. I'll be a little more blunt. I went to Europe. I'm invited for various talks. But when I went and talked and moved around Europe, I then, luckily for me, I found a few young students. That's why I said, if they're young ones, I will talk a little. If they're old ones, I don't want to talk because they're part of my life. One young student again said, can I come with you? Or will you come with me? I was surprised. He pulled me out. Then he took me, after we had had the previous talk all over Europe and heritage lines, and he took me in the car to one more student. After the tourists leave, the whole place is shambles. It's horrible. Everybody fighting with them. The moment you go, they whistle or something, everybody comes to a sense of order. In their order lies chaos, whereas in our chaos lies order. The fascinating thing about the subcontinent is, in spite of all the influences and pushes that have come over centuries and centuries of nearly 30,000 years, we still have differences, and those differences make great architecture and make great history. In fact, I hated the building shown at the bottom. In the main screen was some screen of an old building, inspired by the British. That's not our heritage. That's also part of our heritage in a different way. Like we speak English. When I gave a talk at the School of Architecture in London, none of them could understand my English because their English is different. Our English is English. Then I had to translate. John Allen helped me translate it. And then, oh, this is what you meant. It's a fascinating journey. I'm not for any established, I belong to various heritage groups and temples and things. Recently, Madurai invited me to have their temple. How many people understand Madurai temple or the Tanjore temple? Very few. We all write about it, talk about it. Do we understand it? Even after thousands of years, you cannot understand it. Even after walks around it and around it around 11 or 12 or 13 or 14 or 7 or 5, you can't understand it. That is the greatness of heritage. Another thing, that aspect that I'm glad the heritage people are also, the ASI people are, wherever they've tried to conserve some building under ASI, those buildings have been horrible. Their conservation is the worst approach to conservation. I'm talking of very, very big projects, not small ones. I go there because young ones take me, sir, can you come again with us? We'll show you the truth. They don't understand. They're all, like, moment government steps in, it is destruction. That you must understand. Government is not there, it's only to govern, not to rule. There's a big difference. If you understand that heritage, that's what the old Maharajas used to do. They wouldn't govern you, they will rule you in a different way and then allow you to perform. We all has to have that first. I was very happy to see the council's new regulations saying up to third year they study hard, then fourth and fifth year they disappear and do what they want. A great change in the Indian scope of architecture. The other part of heritage, which I don't want to touch too much because you're all hungry, but RV College I owe, because when I met Pandurang Shetty somewhere in the 80s in the Rotary Club, he said, you're a Rotary chairman, he was Rotary president. Jaisim, what are you? He said, I'm an architect. Very next day we sat together and started RV College. You didn't even take a day. He just took an hour. He said, where do you want? I said, I'll still number, I don't know how many of you remember me in RV College coming and talking to you in the 80s. We would sit under a tree, and that's where we had classes. The most beautiful classes of architecture were under a tree. This was not learned by me. I learned it through JK. He was a fascinating, the tree talks too much and the tree will give you much. It'll give you the fruit, but it will not take the fruit. That is architecture at its highest level. That is heritage at its highest level. If you can understand that and do as an architectural process, I'm with you. The other few points before I close, John, tell me whenever you're hungry or something. Don't hesitate. You, I know you too well. I'm very happy you took away many words of mine into the presence. I said, great, that's fantastic. learn to be different without being different. Many of you young students sketch drawings which make no sense in any sense. Forget students, architects. I was very happy somebody brought the central vista into the picture. The picture you showed me, I was a jury at that point of the central vista. I don't know how many of you know me. I was sitting quietly in the back seat. They said, where is the jury? Somebody said he's somewhere there. The other two jurors are sitting in the back. I said, these are my comments. When we selected and pushed it down and put it up, it was a fascinating thing. But then came my great friend from the great Sept. He said, I'm putting the capital. I said, you're putting a topi. She couldn't understand Tamil as topi. So Bimal Patel looked at me and I looked, I sorry to mention his name, but anyway, it is a mess. But then India goes through mess. It'll wake up. It's a super mess that'll come beyond mess. Great friend. I talked to the other architects there, it's another mess. I love talking messes. There's another problem in Karnataka. I want you all to understand the heritage. What are we? Who are we? Why are we? If you can comprehend and go through that process, you will understand architecture and its process in the process of this country, of this nation, so much more. One of the great people who talked to me a lot, who I'm trying to go visit next month again, you all talk about Ravana and Mahabharata, Ramayana and Mahabharata, Rama and Lakshmana and all these people. To me, the greatest hero is Ravana. How many of you visited Ravana temple in Ceylon? We don't call it a temple. One of the most beautiful spaces I've ever seen in my life. To me, he is a hero beyond anything. Somebody talked about monkeys. Hanuman was a great monkey, a Superman. So was the other fellow. It is how we interpret life. It is how we interpret your own vision of life. Because history is there. I can't deny my mother. I can't deny my father. I can't deny my past. I'm here because of them. But how do I go beyond myself? Should I go beyond myself? Or should I stop? How can I stop? Because everything I do and act, controversial or otherwise, it is there, pushed into the memories of life. That memory becomes a memorial. But the problem is to freeze it into a built factor is very, very complex. I'll just push another line of you. Many of you visit Agra, many of you visit many of these places. Many or most of you visit the Taj Mahal. 90% do not even visit Fatehpur Sikri. Whereas Fatehpur Sikri architecture is one of the greatest architectures I've ever walked in my life, where the Taj looks like one dead little white skin there. It's not my own words. It is the School of Architecture from there who took me there again and showed me again, and 3 times I visited both. Oh, you people can make a difference. You youngsters are the future. You youngsters have to create a new wisdom of life. Architecture must cross boundaries. Heritage must cross boundaries. Then you will happen. I'll tell you another small thing, just for your idea. I was in Kashmir along with my wife in a small group, and I took away to the mountains to ski down the hill. There's a beautiful skiing space there. That's why everybody wants that beautiful, beautiful space in this world. And one of the younger boys, he was, I think, younger, you won't call him younger, to me he looked younger. He said, sir, you are an architect. He talked to me in Hindi, a very funny Punjabi, some language he talked. I said, yes. He liked me. He said, can you come down with me? So I went, walked down. We walked down a hill and a valley I was a little worried, but at that 15, 20 years back, I wasn't worried. I would love to go anywhere in the world. If I could go to the moon, I would have gone to the moon. He took me to the valley, then pushed around. And within the forest, within the movement, was a temple, broken, papal shambles, but still grouped around and seen by people. Then I said, walked inside. Inside, he cleaned it place. So you walk in, doesn't matter. Nobody's looking after it. But since you said you were from the south, I wanted you to have. Every writing there is in Tamil. In Tamil. Which means if it is Dravidian or it is Ceylon or God knows, it was a fascinating experience to walk around that space. Now, if you bring heritage there, they'll cut the tree, loot the plant, and then start heritage, and the whole thing will break in shambles and fall. You must understand what you're talking about. You must go. You must go, travel, travel. The main thing, I don't know how many of you are, which nowadays what you call standard classes, years, which is your first year? How many of your young ones here? The first few, that lot. And which classes are you people in? First year, good. You're in the beginning of the useless journey of life. Don't waste 1 minute of your life. Architecture lives in every step you go. Interns are permanently interns. I'm even now an intern, totally an intern. The students teach me much more every day, the so-called interns, than what I can ever pass to them. He will come, crumble a piece of paper, sketch. When he sees me, get scared and throws it off. I pull it out. This reminded me of some great architect. And in that sketch and in that format, on the crumpled paper, you discover architecture. Only thing nowadays, your NASA and NIASA and all these things, so you must write your title here, name here. What does it matter where I write the name and where I write the title? Where is my design? That is the most important part of it. Where is my concept? How am I detailing it? How am I putting it all together as an integral part of my life today, tomorrow, and the day after? They are the most important things. There are many stories I can tell you of 70 years, 60 years of architecture. But that's another age, that's another life. I wanted to actually more interact, get things done. There's a lot of steps that you can take. We need organization. Mr. Agarwal was a great friend of mine when he was there when they started the heritage thing and all the things. There are a lot of other works that we did. Every day I find out what it is happening. There's a beautiful going on, is Green Earth meeting is going on. Just now another college or another group of architects said, sir, will you be on Zoom? I said, I don't understand Zoom, but you can put it on Zoom. I want you also to very clearly hold thing. Don't, in the past, art took the manifestation of architecture. In the present, technology is taking the manifestation of architecture. Don't let both of them rule you. Architecture is beyond these two. Architecture is a fusion beyond fusion. It's a philosophy. It is not a religion. If you look at architecture as a religion, and only when people contradict you and shout at you and put you on to say, then you realize you have created something. If everybody agreed to your design, there is something wrong, which means they understood you, which means it is below. There are two things that get misunderstood, the bad ones and the very top ones. You must be able to comprehend, slowly understand which is the highest level or the higher level. The great architects, the great architect. Very often India passes through many, many walks in life. I'm very happy that in spite of all the thrust from all over the place, we still retain a sense of the place. Now I'll close before talking another thing. I'm now concentrating for the last 4 or 5 years, not on the urban factor of India, The British created urban factor is not the real architectural life of India or the subcontinent. It is the third and fourth level villages. Unfortunately, we are building highways which are cutting through these villages in the name of communication. What is communication if I go from A to B without knowing what is between A and B? It's the most useless. Whereas in the earlier days, you take a car or a railway train, get down anywhere, drive through villages, movement around, enjoy their compassion, enjoy their willingness and their great enjoyment, and then reach the other place. It was a journey. Architecture and heritage is a journey. If you can understand the journey and go, then you're in a beautiful adventure of life. But if you like to jump from A to there, there's nothing there. You go to the airport, come there and come back, fly back. What have you done? Unless you cross oceans, you cross continents. Even there, I would like you to discover the seas and the skies. I would like to see thesis. How many of you are writing thesis this year? Anybody finished? Any of you writing a thesis? I know he'll get a little Bawane, he'll shout at me afterwards, but doesn't matter. Write a thesis which has never been done before. Do a thesis beyond the dreams. If I say I'm copying, what examples do you have? The moment you have examples, it is not discovery. It is not creativity. It is only recreation. Recreation is a game. It is not architecture. The mind should work. Unfortunately, my body refuses to run with my mind. But my body tries. It is the great thing I want you youngsters to do. We oldies have done all the mess or whatever it is we have done. It's your opportunity to create a great space to live. We must cross boundaries, not national political boundary. You must cross it. You must cross school boundaries, college boundaries, education boundaries, language boundaries. If you can cross, you will discover a way of life that you never imagined. I won't hold you long. We've had a long series of talks and talks and talks. I understood, to be very frankly, like you have understood nothing of what I said. I understood nothing of what all of them said, whole of the morning. But I loved the pleasure of the invitation, or we call it, I can never refuse, or we inviting me. I loved the invitation. I loved coming here. Being me, I criticize it, I pull it, I have fun. I love meeting my old girlfriend here. She'll hit me now. Then walking around the place and things. Namaskar to all of you. Have a great future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I'd like to invite Dr. O.P. Bawane, Principal RVCA, to honor Professor Jaisim. Thank you, sir. With the keynote speech by Professor Jaisim Krishnarao, we did expect some tangential and intriguing perspectives on heritage or parampara, setting a premise that heritage is not actually a point in time in the past, but a journey, a continuing journey that we allow, a trajectory that we observe and allow into the future. Thank you, sir. Now we would have the concluding remarks and the publication release, which Dr. Rima Ahuja would be presenting. A few words about Dr. Rima Ahuja, archaeologist, historian, writer. Dr. Rima Ahuja is Director Maharaja Savai Man Singh II Museum City Palace, Jaipur. Director Jaigar, member Central Advisory Board for Archaeology, Trustee Jaipur Virasat Foundation, visiting professor at SPA Delhi and CHM Ahmedabad University. former Vice President of ICOMOS India, and former member of India's National Monuments Authority. She has authored various books. Some of them include Ahar Culture and Beyond, Prince, Patriot, Parliamentarian, Environmental Degradation, Crusader for Self-Rule, and many more. Over to you, Dr. Reema Hoja.
All right, I'm unmuting myself and you can tell me if you can hear me or not, because I can't see your screen very well. I can see myself now, so I guess I'm there. Thank you seems to be the critical word to start with, though even it's usually the word you end with. But I want to thank everyone who's spoken before this morning. It's been a long morning. I'm not going to use up my 20 allocated minutes of fame or whatever. I will keep it briefer. But having said that, you're speaking to someone who has been teaching. So we'll have to talk. And you're also speaking to a lapsed archaeologist, a non-architect, a sometime historian, and someone who likes to write. So I don't know what you're going to get. I do have some points to share. And this is the point at which I take my glasses off and I can't read either my notes, which I've made right now, or see myself. I think, first of all, for ICOMOS India, the 10th anniversary is extremely important, and we are commemorating and celebrating that, and we have done it this morning. The 75th year of India's independence is, of course, being celebrated across the country. In fact, every moment of India's independence is a moment to celebrate every single day. The gray hair, I couldn't see Professor Krishnarao Jaisim very well on this screen, but I could tell he has gray hair. But I think I have enough to be able to say that growing up, I heard enough about what life had been, not under the colony, which is a term we are using in the Americanism, but under the British Raj, to be fortunate in that we are breathing the air of our own country with its warts and flaws and everything. It is my native land. Having said those things, I am also extremely grateful to the RVCA College and the group for hosting our scientific symposium, our events, for our conclave even. And I realized from the remarks that the keynote speaker made that the audience has a large number of students. So nice to meet them all visually, virtually. But we also have a large number of ICOMOS India members who are joining both online or are watching on Facebook. So again, nice to meet my colleagues visually and virtually. At least you can see me visually at this point. All right, on with the words. When we look back, there is always, or usually, an analysis and a balance sheet in our minds. Sometimes some regret. And that is the case when we look back at, say, 75 years, what have we got? 10 years, yes, what have we got? But overall, what has been happening in the field of heritage? Excuse me, I have not put myself on mute, and I'm sitting in office, and I know that by the law of whatever it is, this is when everybody starts phoning like crazy. Anyway, when we do our balance sheet equivalent, there are regrets, there are flaws, there are things to talk about. However, when we look forward, which is again part of what this morning has been and part of the rest of what will follow will be, when we look ahead, we are planning. We have visions, we have hopes, we have expectations, we have aspirations. The world is before us. It doesn't matter about the color of one's hair. The world still lies before us. And yes, Aditi, Saranya, EPWG, I'm with you for the 25 years, even if I'm by then not able to comprehend, I will be with you in spirit. So the 75 years of India's independence and the 10 years of the existence of ICOMOS in its new reincarnated form gives us a chance to collectively do both. Look backwards and look forward. And for this, I would like to thank our Secretary Shalini and the zonal reps for giving their excellent summary both about the 10 years that have gone for an organization, an institution, and for the activities that that institution has been doing. This gives us a chance to both look back and look forward. And I'm not going to recap everything, but it's been a pleasure to hear Rohit talk about the long journey in that brief period of time that led to, as I'm using the word again, a second time, a reincarnation of ICOMOS. I'm also going to, looking at the time, not go into details, but we know that the constitution of our country has highlighted the importance of culture, and it is one of our duties to be safeguarding it. It's not happening, but we've already talked about what doesn't happen. Let's look forward to what can and will be happening. I think I'm going to do my usual thing, leave you with points and also leave you slightly bewildered when my mind moves somewhere else and I leave my thoughts incomplete, but bear with me. Yes, our membership is 338 plus institutional members today. And that is great. It is laudable. From where we were and where we are now, it is a great step. And we have quality in that membership. And I'm hoping that the students who are hearing us, who are not yet members, but are institutional members, will eventually be becoming full members in their own rights. But along with the quality of the existing membership, we need to remember that you don't have to be a member of ICOMOS India to be speaking up for the past, for heritage, for the tangible and intangible traditions, for all of that. So while we value our members, we also value those who are not our members and value not just the numbers, not just the quantity, but the quality and the caliber of all of them. So once again, time to fold hands, which I am doing, but pushing on. Those outside the membership are still part of us. I'm using a collective us. And the personal journeys of us are important. How do we come to be here? Growing up in an India that was already independent, as I mentioned before, and able to see a lot of the rural areas, thanks to wherever my father was going, one of the questions would be each time we visited something that looked a bit dilapidated, but looked, picturesque is the word, the British word, Angrezi word, had history, wasn't being looked after, and questions would be, and my parents would make sure I would go to museums, which is why I said personal histories are something you need to start recording, if only to understand your own discipline. And my question would be, why can't we pay more attention to this? And my father's very, he would not give a reason. He would say, look around you. And we would usually be in a village, children with runny noses, eyes with rheumy eyes, with infection, lack of drinking water. I'm sitting talking to you from Jaipur, Rajasthan. Rajasthan, lack of drinking water meant a lot back then. It still means a lot. In fact, it means a lot across the country now, where even urban cities run out of water. And he said, decision makers have to balance the requirements of the whole country. He wasn't making excuses. He was just making me think. For me, the past matters. It matters far more than the future, because the past is where I am rooted. But with those roots, I have to look at the future. I cannot rest on the things of the past, which much as I would love to. So the past matters. And because the present matters, we have to take our collective decisions on how we can do our job best. So let's record personal journeys of Nalini ma'am, of everybody, of all our professionals, all our teachers, all the people who have been, like Rohit talked this morning, like Nupur talked this morning, the little personal journeys that have made big steps possible. Those must be recorded. Our organization doesn't run only through what a small number of people doing the administration of it, the executive committee, the voted in members, the national security, I think there's the National Scientific Council and the other members make it. No organization can run just by its office bearers. The voice of everyone matters. Every one of you, as I said, within the organization, or every one of you who is a soldier for the cause of the past matters. So if you feel we are not listening enough, please shout out, please speak up, please make your voice heard. ICOMOS India is you. ICOMOS India is us. And coming back to the honoring, so Nalini ma'am has never been a direct teacher in a formal sense, but I have learned from her. I have learned from her when she was in her good mood and talking to me, and we had met at, I think, the first World Archaeology Congress. She was talking about her work on Jaipur, on Delhi, sorry, Jaipur's on my mind. We have met when she is angry. She is my teacher in the real sense. And so by honoring her, we are honoring her and her work, but we are honoring all our teachers all the way back. And when we honor them, we honor teachers way back. So that old tradition of Guru Shishya, teacher taught, senior learner. And here seniority doesn't mean that I know more because I have that many more years on this earth on my plate. I have to learn from people around me, and Nalini ji and people like her have helped us learn, evolve, grow ourselves. So to you, ma'am, she's also a cat lover like I am. To you, ma'am, and to teachers like you, you are part of the continuity that makes the work of heritage possible for the generations that follow. And people can disagree with what you say or agree with what you say. It gives us a point from which we take off. So we value all of that. The same thing goes with the continuity for the other two organizations that we have specifically honored today, that collectively with the RVCA we have honored today. The Archaeological Survey of India, much maligned, for which I have a soft spot, though I've never worked for them, but I have understood the constraints on them. And for INTAC, again, the history goes far back. Their roles need to be acknowledged and are being acknowledged, and the what's need to be pointed out and analyzed to move forward. I want to now very briefly, but come back to something that we have all lived through in the past, which I've harped on at several of my talks, and I think you're now going to mute me out each time I say the COVID years, the pandemic years, and life during the COVID years and post-COVID. But that has put a lot of pressure on professionals, thinkers, teachers, everyone working in the field of heritage, of protecting India's long heritage. It has put us under the pressures of, online initially became the new thing. We learned. I gave a beautiful talk in which I had eventually found later on, I had exited everything else and I was talking to myself. I think it was one of my best speeches ever. I wish I could recapture that. But it also meant we were multitasking far more with that we had done in the past. We were facing challenges of our own illnesses, of the illnesses and losses of people around us. We have talked about it in the past, and everyone has managed to overcome that as a challenge. We have not just coped. We have been. We have evolved. We have worked. And we are continuing to work. We are multitasking more. Today, there are so many parallel things happening. Whatever we are doing, you don't have to be physically here. Wherever you are, we are working. We are, I keep feeling FOMO, which I'm told is a word I shouldn't even be knowing about, but I do feel left out of everything that's happening. I felt challenged, but collectively our strengths have helped us think more about the organization, come up with policies that will help the heritage of India. Shalini used the word heritage warriors. It is correct. We are all collectively heritage warriors. And so are the people working towards outreach. Because unless everyone understands what we are working for, the heritage warriors will be lonely. EPWG, you're no longer emerging. You're right there. You're right there. A big thanks. And the pressure on all of you have been far more, because this is a stage you have to be performing all the time. And you're doing a great job with the analysis. Sorry, even putting it like this sounds like I'm being patronizing. I cannot be patronizing to colleagues like you people. So full marks to you all. Keep pointing out, keep making plans for the next 50 years, because that's the only way you will stay on your toes. A big thought for all the pressures that you've faced. A couple of more points. ICOMOS India, both pronunciations are correct, whichever way you want it. We need to connect much more with like-minded people, but also with people who don't think like us. We need to connect much more and be rebuffed the way we have been by so many government bodies. Because by breaking your heads against the wall, there's a tiny dent. There's a bigger dent on the head. I'm saying this because I've had my share of falls, which is my apology for not being with you physically. And I wasn't falling because I'm old and doddering. I was falling because my mind still tells me I'm like 5 and I was running around trying to get fountains repaired and turned around. And I've been told by a good authority that I should actually, walk around with a stick so I remember. So we need to work with like-minded government organizations that don't always listen to us. But there are so many areas of research. We need to have another set of seminars, because when we talk about terms like colonization, it's got certain connotations. It's a much more top-down. It doesn't, if you go, I'm a historian, but I'm a lapsed archaeologist, lapsed everything, lapsed whatever, but it doesn't fully cover the scope. We're just following a term. Just like when we talk about conservation of objects, on which we also need a whole series. Another ICOMOS member has just been in my room, and I was saying to him, because it's a smaller group, can we go in for a series of talks which their NSC will have to talk about? Because Jeernodhar does not equal conservation always, or Jeernodhar or the equivalent. And one of the many things I've done for my sins is a translation of a 15th century manuscript, in which we are specifically told that some things can be repaired, which is not conservation again, restored, which is not conservation again, but some things cannot be for certain reasons. Not enough time to go into all of that, but certainly Mandan, Sutradhar Mandan and his Devta Murthy Prakarana and the other 6. I haven't translated the other 6, my Sanskrit runs short. Do talk about what is allowed and what isn't. So there is a continuity, but there is also a lack of continuity. I think I'm almost at the end of my thing, but my moments of under the spotlight. Thank you, organizers. It must have been really, really hard. My colleagues, ICOMOS India, Vikramjit, your colleagues at Bangalore. I'm one of the ones who's messaging in for all people. Hey, what's the link? How do I get my face online? I can imagine what you've gone through. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for doing this. But thank you, participants. Thank you, people sitting in the audience. I could only see the first row there, but I know the students are there and the students there are listening. And I know that our institutional member students will eventually listen, even if not to my part, to the rest of the thing. Thank you to every one of you. Thank you to those who've spoken, to those who have not, to those who have sat there and muttered and said, what is this? I could have done a better job. Of course you can. Of course we all can. We are all part of the same collective intelligence, the same collective whole. We are the ones who make the changes happen. We are going to make that change happen. So we are part of the thinking, policy-making mind. We are part of the active arms. We are part of the eyes for the heritage watches and other things. We are the ears and the voices that communicate. We need to be. There are challenges. There is destruction around us. Yes, destruction can be, whether you follow the Harry Potter thing of a phoenix or you follow the Pralay part, destruction can lead to new things coming, but destruction can lead to the unbearable loss of what has been before. So as professionals, we need to lament the destruction. We need to record it. And I do not want to end on that note. I want to thank you all and move on to something very positive that ICOMOS India has been doing with all of you, with all our members. And that is some of the publications that we have worked on. So I'd like to announce while my colleagues are making the PPT ready to, or the screen share ready. The scientific symposium that is taking place here for 22-23 will eventually find its way out as printed papers. So the 2019, 2020, and 2021 volumes are soon going to be released. In the meantime, it is with great joy and pleasure that we announce that the very, very lot of hard work done by East Zone, ICOMOS East Zone, and by the NSC of heritage towns and villages have put together a book or a publication on their work, Resilient and Sustainable Development of Historic Precincts and Areas. We can have the next page, please, with an editorial team headed by Dr. Shangamitra Basu, who is in the audience and will be speaking in the later things, along with her editorial team, Ananya Bhattacharya, Arjun Mukherjee, Kamalika Bose, Pooja Bhaumik, Sukanya Mitra, and Sukrit Sen. A big thanks to them, to all the people who participated in the really interesting webinars they had. We have it all online. We need to find a way of doing that. So a big thanks for this. And we have another publication that will be coming out soon. This one is going to be available online very, very soon. And the focus is West Bengal. The other one is exploring nature, culture, and heritage, Western Ghats cultural landscapes. And that is going through some of the final formalities. And that is being done with BRICS and West Zone ICOMOS. So we are ready to bring those out. And since so many people in the North Zone and other places worked hard for the Central Vista, that publication will also be available to everyone in e-form. So all these publications we are talking about are primarily e-forms at this point. The easier we are in an e-world. Here we are with the one for BRIC. Thank you very much. This is edited by Niyati Jigyasu, who I know is online. Poonam Chambadia is very much, you heard her, she's there. And Vedehi. So a big thanks to them. And they've got their documentation team, they've got their coordinators. It's been a hard work done by them because it started off with, of course, preparation, but in-field training for the students along with the documentation, lots of online lectures. That is one of the specialities that I think we have developed in ICOMOS India as we've faced the last few years. And I think it's one of the ways that is going to stay with us. So any more pages to share? This is looking really fascinating. Hello. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now, at the venue, I'd like to invite Dr. Sangamitra Basu, the editor of the publication, and architect Poonam Trambadia, West Zone Representative ICOMOS, for the publication release.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you from me and over to my colleagues. As I said, we are all part of the same.
That is last 3 years also, we had 7 sessions with the support of the publication team and ex-com of ICOM and all the editorial members whose names were there, Ananya, Shukanna, Arjun, Kamalika, Shukrit, and Shukanna and Pooja, and EPWG members and the publication team. We have been really great. I mean, the love we have been able to do that. I hope that it will be useful. And thank you so much. Thank you for all the support to the ExCom and the publication subcommittee.
I'd like to thank all the participants. We're close to the lunch session. We'd be concluding the pre-lunch session with the inauguration of the exhibition Parampara 75. I request all the dignitaries to proceed to the first floor studio 101 and 102 to inaugurate the exhibition. And after the inauguration, we would break for lunch. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I would also like to announce that this brings us to the conclusion of session 1, day 1 of Parampara 75. We're breaking for lunch now, and we will resume with the session at 2:30. Thank you.